And here we are live, the Trampled Underfoot podcast show. And your hosts are Mark Lindsay and Eloy Escojedo on two opposite sides of what we now call for the past 200 and something odd years the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
And welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
I was going to do something else. And I don't know, I tried, because my mind was going from what we were talking about before. So I tried to patch it up and sort of trailblaze in the normal direction.
Well, without knowing it, you started something. We get in here before we go live. We get in here and we just start talking and BS and what we did over the week and this, that, and the other. And you had a little incident that occurred, and I just started laughing. I just started laughing my ass off because been there, done that, got the T-shirt, and I could take off on this subject for a week. I'm not kidding you, man, because it is funny. To me.
Okay, so basically, footwear, folks.
Yes, exactly.
Shoelaces.
Did
Let's
you know
get
that
into it.
sandals were invented by a French man?
I thought that they were invented in Norfolk, Virginia. No,
No, the guy's name was Philippe Philip.
bull. You got me.
But yeah, Philippe Philip. Mm-hmm. No, I'll just pick up the topic from where we kind of left off, man. It's self-realization is what it is. It really is. Yeah, and what triggered it was your response. Go ahead and tell them what it was if you're not afraid of it.
It was natural the first time, so this is not going to be as good.
Right.
And I'm what do you call it when you self ruin it for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a word for it.
I can't remember.
There's a word for it.
Self-censoring?
When not sacrificing, but
self-censoring?
No, there's a... Dang it. I hate it when...
Well, they've never... So that's okay.
Well, they don't even know yet. They're still in the... Well, I hate it when there's a cascade of I can't get it right, and it just keeps cascading until a big freaking snowball of like, what the hell am I trying to say? Ah! We were talking about... So we were back and forth talking about... I took a walk with Vigo around town. It's a college town now. I mean, it's literally... There's kids all up and down this place, up and down and whatnot. And, I got looking around and these are all kids. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I've lived, and it's kind of a weird thing, but I've lived a significant amount of time. These kids are kids. And some of them are huge, towering skyscrapers, but they're probably about like 19 years old, 18 or 19 years old. Who knows what the hell? So it's a weird situation, but I'm walking. And as I was walking with my dog and I'm walking back, there were two girls, college girls or whatnot, coming up behind me. And they passed me. But as they're passing, the one girl says, she looks over to my dog and she says, "Oh, how's it going, old man?" And and she kept going. And I'm thinking to myself, and I told her, well, him and, he and I both are old men. And they started giggling and they just kept walking in their silliness of whatever. And I thought to myself at that point, is she just making it casual fun? And she probably was. But the point is that I started thinking, if you think that there's this great chasm between old folks and young folks, if you blink once or hiccup or you drink a soda and a little bit of the stream goes down the wrong pipe. After that cough, 20 years have passed. So basically, we were going on about that. It was more natural when Mark and I were talking in privacy. But yeah.
But I'm going to give you valuable style points for the self-deprecating, like
that's
Steve
the word
said.
I was looking for.
Steve threw that at me.
Oh, Steve.
He's getting old and so am I, that kind of thing. A lot of people wouldn't have done that because a lot of people fight against aging. And George Carlin did a little thing about it in the middle of another skit when he said when he got into his late 40s, he was looking in the mirror and he'd like, well, I guess I'm getting older, because it's a way of BSing yourself. Older sounds better than old. It even might sound like it's going to last a little longer. But the truth of it is, yeah, we're getting old, but it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're absolutely 100% right. You just wait. Wait till you can't find the glasses you're wearing. Wait until you have to have two or three pairs of glasses with you, one for reading, one for seeing, and one for sun when you're driving,
You know how in reference to this, this is an aside, but within the context,
Mhm.
you know how I judge the aptitude and awareness of the person that's cashing me out when I go to the store,
Mhm.
or I get to the cash register, any many of the sundry different locations. You know how I check for aptitude in the person servicing me in that transaction
How's that?
when the bill pops up on the screen,
Mhm.
and I just sit there and I look at the screen and the numbers, and I'm
Mhm.
just looking at them, trying for my somehow miraculously, because I don't have my glasses with me, for them to converge into something I can read. And if the cash register person stands there and says nothing and waits the duration of me just staring, then I know that that person's aptitude is probably, or attention span is probably in the neighborhood of not present. But the other day I did that, and the lady right away, she saw, I looked at the, so I've already stopped saying what I used to say, which was, "Oh, it's just that I left my glasses at home." To people, I don't even say, because
Mhm.
my fear was that they thought that I couldn't read or something.
Yeah.
Because why is he so intent on the numbers? Well, I've stopped doing that a little while back now, and I'm marking it like within this year, because I used
Mhm.
to do that often. I don't do that no more. I just stare at the damn screen, and I barely don't even say anything. And that's one of the things that old people do. You'll come in service, and then they'll just stare at the screen, and then the person that's servicing them, they think that they're slow, they're old, and therefore they're slow. But it's not that they're slow, it's just that they can't freaking see.
They can't see the total. Exactly.
Exactly.
All
how
right.
about how about them apples, Mark?
Let me throw one at you. It's perfectly legit. And
Yeah.
yes, that's one way of gauging the caliber of the cashier checking you out. Because if they're right there, okay, 22.75, you're like, okay, I can understand that. Thank you. And now we can get on with it.
Yeah.
But if they're standing there, arms folded, looking at you, waiting on you to do something, I'm like, well, it's your move, Chief. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. This is not a chess game, lady. I need some help here. Can you please
It's it.
read off the numbers?
It's it. Now let me
Um,
ask you. Let me ask you this about that though, because I have. Okay, let's just get that out. Have you ever asked somebody else to read a label for you because you just couldn't friggin' see it and you forgot your
yep.
glasses at home?
I've asked them to read. I've made people. I mean, I've requested, and they've done it. Read out whole instructions on the back of freaking like bottles and stuff,
Oh man,
and they've done it, dude.
yeah.
And they've done it, and they under like, yeah, dude, yeah. And the thing is, I could just bring my glasses, but sometimes I forget. I'm not at the stage where I bring them along with me, but I could use that.
You never will be. You will always forget your glasses. So just give up on that fight right now. You'll get about halfway there and go, damn, I forgot my glasses. Or you'll go to pick something up and you reach for, oh, damn, forgot my glasses.
My grandfather
Happens
used to
all the time.
carry. He used to carry a thing in his pocket, and it was, and so he'd carry his glasses, and
Mhm.
my dad did too. I remember they would carry like a cushiony leather
Mhm.
outside, cushiony inside, and they'd
Yep.
put their brimmed glasses in there.
I have a little cloth one. I put it in my front pocket. But sometimes I forget. It just happens. It's funny. I remember my keys. I remember my wallet. But for some reason, I still haven't got it in there. There's a starch blocker in there somewhere that keeps me from folding up those glasses, put them in the little case, put them in my pocket. Maybe 50% of the time I'll have them.
No, wait a
And
second.
I'm on an empty aisle in the middle of a store going, geez, is that 1/4 inch or is that 1/8 inch? I can't see.
That happens with me.
And it's
But
in a
you remember,
package, you know.
you remember your glasses? Oh, I'm sorry, your glasses. Look at me. You remember your keys
Hmm.
because by default, there's no way your butt is gonna get out the door. Well, even if they're in
Oh, I can
separate.
get out the door. I can't get back in it, but I can get out the door.
But what's worse, usually people, I don't know what usually people do, but I have them. I have. See, I don't want to give out so much. Not that. Well, if
Hmm.
it gets to the point where I give out that much information and they actually follow up on it, I
Hmm.
deserve it. So I have my keys in two different, little key chainy things. Um, but I attached a long frickin' lanyard to one
Hmm.
so that that thing is, and I can't get into my car without, you know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
that. But I have left my wallet.
Yeah, but well, I see it. The way I cured that is my keys sit right on top of my wallet, but my glasses I have out with the little legs extended, sitting right on the keyboard of the computer in the other room, and the case is sitting right in front of them. And my wallet and keys are over here somewheres. I take the keys right off the top of my wallet, put my wallet in my back pocket, keys in the front pocket, and about half the time I'll remember to grab my glasses. The other half I don't. And I only need them when I don't have them.
I mean, that's the thing. It's just one of those things
Okay.
that
Did you ever go in specifically looking for something? And I'm going to use hardware as an example. And you think you found the package, but you're not sure. So you buy the two next to either side of it, just because when you get home and you find your glasses, you'll get the right one because you can return them later.
I've had situations like that with like one off, like threaded
Mhm.
whatnots. And I have done that. I can't recall the specific, but yeah, in a broad sense, I've done that.
Yep. Just, oh, damn it.
Measurements are a problem, when it's just, it is what it is.
But it's acknowledging the age thing. And I don't know, in a lot of ways, I refuse to acknowledge it, but in a physical sense, I have to acknowledge it because I live in this body. I'm kind of choiceless in the matter. And there are certain things that you just can't do anymore. And you don't know it until you try to do it. And I spend a lot of time walking around here with my hand on my back going, damn, I can't do that no more, So,
I'm going to tell you one thing, though. This is a little bit, but I'm going to say, and it all depends per person. When I was talking about the bike that I had
mhm,
bought
mhm,
about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, whatnot, I was in a certain degree of dire straits in terms of my energy
yeah,
to where it was a problem.
yeah,
Um, and I bought the bike, and we had a little conversation because I was having some issues, and in fact, it went away. I sprayed the crap out of it with whatnot, and it went away. But it still has its little sounds now that resurge. It's always gonna have sounds. It looks like bikes are
yeah.
just bikes.
It's one of those things that's going to need a little bit of tinkering with here and there.
Well, once I started doing that,
Hmm.
it was not painfully. Excuse me. It was incredibly physically tiring to where
Yeah.
when I would make the run and return home, when I'd stop, my legs had pulsations in a very weird way.
Yep.
Um, and that just, and I kept doing it. Anyways, I did that for like a month and something, and I was killing it with energy, like good.
Hmm.
I mean, within reason. I'm not saying I'm
No,
freaking
to build up your
javelin,
stamina.
but like compared to what I was
Hmm.
handling before, it was practically night and day. So it helped me, it suited me.
Hmm.
Well, it lasted and has lasted roughly because like maybe a month and a half or so ago I
Hmm.
stopped.
Oh.
Like I may have done it once a week, but before that I was doing it either every day or every other twice or 3 times a week.
Mhm.
Just that much was enough to, and I lost some weight enough that it was noticeable. Not like, hey, I'm too sexy for my shorts, but it was within what I'm getting at is this: just that attempt and that focus.
Mhm.
I've been riding the coattails of that for the past month and a half, 2 months, that I haven't been as active in that way,
Mhm.
to where lately I've been doing the walk and all this that we were talking about happened. But I just wanted to throw that out. So what I'm getting at is that even though you're at a certain level, maybe perhaps,
Yeah.
and everybody's different, but changing habitual patterns
Yes.
is pretty significantly powerful.
I will agree with you wholeheartedly. I will agree with you 100% because your body gets complacent with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I say this as a fat old out of shape guy, okay? I've never weighed this much in my life. But your body gets used to a certain amount of caloric intake and it gets used to a certain amount of activity
Yeah.
and it kind of well, yeah, it stagnates.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it takes a dramatic shock in one direction or another, either a massive reduction in the amount you eat or a sudden increase in exercise. Not a huge amount, but like what you were doing, riding the bike 2, 3 times a week. That was a shock to the system, and the system has to kind of wake up, and the metabolism goes, "Oh, okay, yeah, you're absolutely right. We got to burn some of this stuff off because this is too hard to do."
I was dragging butt,
Mm-hmm.
and then after the fact, I had some pep in my
Mm-hmm.
walk. And to this day, I still have the pep that I didn't have prior to when I started that whole bit of doing the exercise. But I didn't just do the biking. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of an exaggeramus type of
Mm-hmm.
guy, and when I do something, I go in kitchen sink and all, because anything worth doing is worth, you
Overdoing.
know, going hog wild on.
Yeah.
And so I would do all sorts of exercises here. My dog would just look at me jumping and crap, and you could tell in his face that he thought, we got to take this boy to a psychiatrist because
That's it.
yeah,
You okay? You all right, bro?
yeah, you could see in his face he's like, buddy,
Well,
I
but see, that's indication too that he's getting older as well. Because if he was about 10 years younger, he'd be jumping up there with you, wanting
oh
to go
yeah.
wrestle or fight or something like that. Now he's just looking at you like, dude, let's go get a pizza. Come on.
But I've been walking him and he's been enjoying it.
Mhm.
Um, and so, oh, I'll tell you this one.
Mhm.
Another encounter, because I've been encountering a lot of just walking your dog. There's a lot of
Mhm.
students with dogs. So I'm walking my dog, and all of a sudden this dog from a girl, whatnot, uh, the dog, the leash expands. You know those
Oh
retractable,
yeah, retract. Yeah.
and the dog shoots out into the freaking sidewalk, just a few feet in front of Vigo,
Mhm.
and starts going off on a barking tangent like you would not believe. And Vigo's looking like he's like, "Hey, dude, I'm old." But I saw it and it looked all fluffy and whatnot, and for some reason I thought it was a girl dog. What would I know? Either way, right?
Yeah.
But it was so. The girl comes out and she brings the dog a little bit closer and this and that, and we exchange a few pleasantries. And I said, "Well, mine is old, but I was hoping he would get lucky."
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, it's a boy." And I said, "Oh well." I said,
Don't ask, don't tell.
I said, no, but listen. I said, "Oh, darn it! I thought there was a chance." But when I said that,
Mhm.
due to all the standards of today,
Uh-huh.
I was in my mind. I was thinking about, was this offensive to the dog's gender? When I was thinking about, and by virtue of her student, which is a young person,
Mhm.
would associate that comment
Mhm.
as something that it's not. I mean, it
Yeah.
is what it is.
Well,
It's a
but you never
joke,
know. You never know these days, man.
right? But that's what I'm saying. But like 20 years ago, 20 years ago,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
was not a. But now I'm thinking, well, would this be? Anyways, whatever.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's legit because you never know who's going to pick up a rock and throw it. I mean, but that's also another part of it. I mean,
It's ma'am.
yeah, whatever. I mean, fine, suit yourself. You don't want me to, it's funny. You're getting all cheesed off because I offended you, but you're not worried about offending me. How about a little bit of common civility here? But,
Well, there was one. Not to get too far into it,
mhm,
but by virtue of all that,
yeah.
just this one thing, and it's
Hmm.
obvious. It's logistic. It's reasonably obvious due to that
Uh,
scenario of what we're talking about in terms of like it's
mhm.
ma'am or whatnot. That also means in turn that the person, just like what you said right now, does not get to. So if the person decides, because there was this one guy that joked in that way, or if a person says, even if in his mind he's lying, but
Mhm.
just to prove a point or just to um deactivate a situation, says, well, guess what, I'm abroad, or
Mhm.
whatever the hell he wants to say, um and the person cannot retort by saying, no, you're not. They have to accept it by sheer. I don't know if you're getting my drift with
I
this.
do. I am getting your drift.
Yeah, I'm being a little bit,
Sure,
um
we have to dance around certain subjects,
yeah.
but yeah, I do get it.
So
I'm
if
not
if
being.
you're the serious person, that
Mhm.
everything has to be followed by your rules of all these things that just happened upon us, then I can get to do it too, and you don't get to question that if I'm bull
Exactly.
crapping or not. That's not your choice to be to.
Exactly, exactly. And that was my point in it. It seems awful funny that you are getting cheesed off because you were offended over something I said in innocence, but you
Right,
don't seem to be concerned as to whether or not you're offending me with your anger.
right.
So, you know, oh well.
Yeah,
That's another bit of that self-realization too, because it's yeah, it has a lot to do with age, but it also has a lot to do with the historical context because that's what we were brought up, the environment we were brought up in. That's what we're used to. Yeah, I'm used to rotary phones, and then I got used to the touch tone phone, and now I'm used to the thing in there on the charger. It hasn't changed a whole heck of a lot. Size, shape, color, that's about it. And it went wireless, but it's still the same piece of equipment. So dealing with people on a personal one-to-one level to me hasn't changed that much either. Yeah, now they've got different colored hair. I mean, when you and I were in school, we would have laughed our butts off at somebody with green hair or neon red or blue or something
I
like
mean a
that.
little bit, but remember, I was in the punk. I wasn't punk, but like that was
That
commonplace.
was just starting to get going though. It wasn't mainstream at all. You know,
No, it was
if
sort of
if
like
if
a.
the attitude then was if you dyed your hair, you were trying to hide the gray. That was the only reason to dye your hair was to hide the gray.
And it was usually blue or purple.
Well, yeah. Well, we used to laugh about blue-haired old ladies in Cadillacs. And I did know a woman. I worked with a woman at an upholstery shop who dyed her hair bright blue, and she was 80 if she was a day, but she knew what she was doing with a sewing machine, so she just worked.
I mean, we did grow up with all these different things,
Hmm.
and it keeps furthering on.
Well, so my point in all of that is, how can you expect anyone to suddenly stop or change or switch or do something different?
You can't.
You've been brushing your teeth the same way for 40 years. Suddenly change the way you do it. You've had this diet for however long you have had it. Suddenly change it. I mean, some things you can just switch off and on, but not something you've been doing for that long.
No, yeah, it's just how things move across time.
Hmm.
and with the technologies and understandings and stuff. But I refuse to. Well, I have the hindsight to know. But people, every time people a new generation is born,
Hmm.
um, there's a whole history
Hmm.
that's unknown to them. And if people, besides the natural course of teenage rebellion, if people don't acknowledge that stuff came before,
Hmm.
that imparted wisdom to a great degree, because that's like kind of the world that you exist in, except if enough people start doing that, then crap like you know discussed over previous ideas and whatnot occur. In some cases it could be validated,
Hmm.
but when it goes to an extreme, it's not. I guess the whole thing has to do with um, that every time a person is born, a new generation, everything that, if you don't listen, everything that came before, you could chalk it up to passe.
Yeah.
Even the philosophy.
Yeah. Well, everything, big and small, because every generation, I know I did, and my peers did, every generation believes that they are better than the previous one, and all the problems in the world are their fault. So therefore, they didn't know what they're doing. Never mind the fact that they set it up to where you could have this cushy life you're living. You're not out scrounging around looking for firewood to heat up the water to take a bath. You're not walking a quarter mile to the community well to get the water, you know, to take that bath or even to drink for the day. So they did do a few things right.
Yeah.
But yeah, but what gets me, and this is a weird segue, and I know Linda's waiting for this. What gets me is where when they think they've invented something new that has been around, and it's not something new, they have gone back a century or more. Linda was scrolling through her Facebook, and she's in the process of making a outfit for a working class woman from like the 1850 to 1870, 1880 time frame,
That's interesting.
because she goes out and she does demos with her spinning wheels and what have you. And her lockdown project, her COVID project, was she handmade a outfit for a mid 1700s working class woman, but it didn't fit really out here. People thought it was interesting and what have you, but that was back east. There weren't really a lot of European settlers, and especially women out here during that time. So she decided she needed to make it more relevant to this area and that era. So she's, doing a lot of research and joined a few Facebook groups and what have you. And one of these being this Civil War clothing enthusiast group, women's group. And there was a post, people laughing their butt off about a product that's been out for a while. I guess it's been out since like 2018 or something like that. I have to give away the brand name because nobody's going to believe me. It's called Zip Her. And what it is it's pants and shorts for women that have a zipper that go from the front, about, imagine where the fly is on your blue jeans. Starts right there, but goes all the way down and around the back.
Okay.
So that women don't have to drop their drawers if they're out hiking and suddenly need to go jump behind a bush and do something.
Interesting.
And she started laughing. She told me about it. I started laughing because up until maybe the late 1800s, early 1900s, somewhere around the turn of the 19th or the 20th century, All women's underwear was like that.
And you wouldn't have known, nor
It
I.
it didn't have a zipper. They were so yeah, let me freak you out. Your great great grandmother wore crotchless underwear. That's what I'm saying. All women did. So they've gone back 150, 200 years and think this is new and empowering.
I wouldn't have known that.
Well, I wouldn't have either until she got into this and, started making all this stuff.
Well, how
But
about handkerchiefs?
handkerchiefs were around, or they
No,
called
I'm
them.
saying in our time they were around.
Oh yeah, well they were around back then too, and in
No,
fact
I know.
they were considered a kind of a status symbol. You always had one tucked in your sleeve.
No, yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is that that's gone away to a point.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't. Like, I was told as a kid,
Hmm.
especially when we went out somewhere fancy,
Hmm.
take your handkerchief, just like your father and grandfather does.
Fold it in the pocket.
Yeah, or in your back pocket.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's
Um, I carried one. I didn't use it. Mom always said if you got to use it, go to the bathroom. She didn't want to hear it. She didn't want to see it. Nobody around wanted to know what was going on with that
I
handkerchief.
didn't like the idea of having a
I
handkerchief,
I didn't either.
and once you blow your nose, now you have this snotty thing that you have to hold on
Exactly.
to.
Mom, that's what toilet paper's for. Well, I don't care if you use it or not. Just you need to have it because it's good to have. And but you go to the bathroom, and okay. My father carried one all the time, always, and I just never. Yeah, no, no, thanks. No, not for me.
That was something
Um,
that men purchased.
Men in hats, men with hats, wearing I don't know if you watch movies from the 20s, 30s, 40s,
Yeah,
up till just a little bit after. In fact, I think hats went out during World War II, but men always had a hat on, and they
they
always
still
knew
had
to
them in the
take it off
50s.
inside. Very few, but not near as much as it was in the 30s or 40s. It was, I mean, and of all styles, you had guys with the straw Panamas, then you had the fedora, and you had the bowler, just all kinds of different hats. But
Yeah,
now, if you see a hat, it's a baseball cap,
pretty much. Yeah,
maybe a stocking cap, a beanie, or something like that. But
yeah.
but not if you're getting dressed up. If you're putting on a suit, you don't wear a hat. Where before 40 years ago, you wouldn't think about wearing a suit without a hat. It was just
And
part
it
of the
look more.
outfit.
It looks more elegant, in my opinion.
You know.
You wouldn't like hats. Like, I would not wear one now. I have worn them throughout my life, though. To be honest
Mhm.
with you,
Sure.
but if most people don't, it's kind of like follow the crowd. It's out of place.
It is out of place, but it's one of those things that has become, I don't know, I think very few people can pull off wearing a hat. Some people look good with it. Some people really look dumb. It also depends on the hat. I mean,
I
can
think
you
it.
imagine a Stetson on me? That ain't gonna happen.
Well,
You know,
actually,
I'm more of
a
a
s-
baseball cap or flat cap, roadster cap kind of
no, a Stetson looks ridiculous on everybody.
guy. Yeah,
The problem is, if everybody's wearing Stetsons,
yeah.
then it's normalized.
You look out of place without one.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just that kind of it just goes in circles and it goes in cycles. you know but okay, Greg here says fedoras till the mid 60s when wearing a suit here anyway. All of his uncles and dad wore them. Okay. um I don't remember them in the 60s at all, but again, I was coming up.
Yeah, you can see them on TV.
Yeah, but that was from the 40s and 50s to the
No,
early 50s.
no. If you think back at, well, when was I Love Jeannie or something to that effect,
You mean
or
I Love Lucy?
I Dream of Jeannie.
I Dream of Jeannie was the 1960s, but they were also in the military and they wore their uniform caps.
No, but the husband would come home with the
He with his uniform cap. He was a colonel.
no. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, he was. He was. How about Bewitched?
When it first started, Darren did wear a hat, but I don't. I think like after the second season, it went away.
The I mean,
You know,
it
I'm
started
trying to go through the TV shows. My Three Sons. Nope. Fred McMurray didn't wear a hat. Um, Ricky Ricardo sometimes wore a hat, but that was the 50s.
that was the 50s, so that's a decade earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it started going away in the 60s
Mm-hmm.
instead of the 50s.
Kind of like the flat top crew cut
That
went
was
that was
50s.
just gone in the 60s. It was gone. Everybody had long hair. My dad had long hair.
I mean, there were outliers.
Sure. I mean, yeah, but they were always seemed to be like the barrel chested guy with the huge mustache like this and the flat top, had the stub of a cigar hanging out of his mouth, you know, was a drill sergeant in the Marine Corps or something like that. But
I want to go abstract. Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh yeah, but go ahead. I'm ready. Go
No,
for
because
it.
I wanted to go abstract, just in context, because it's
Hmm.
we can trace well, obviously, styles,
Oh yeah.
and we've talked about from the 2000s on. I am
Hmm.
sorry, but you can't really trace a style. Um, whether or not you're a fashion mogul or not,
Hmm.
forgive you me, I can't tell the freaking difference anymore. Nothing makes nothing's out of place or not out of place.
Well, that kind of goes to show you how far out in left field people have to be and the generations have to be different. Because with us, it was real easy. My dad always wore the button up shirt. The only time my dad wore a t shirt was at work. If, you know, on his days off, it was a button up shirt with a white t shirt underneath it. To him, a white t shirt was an undershirt. And it wasn't until he was, oh, I want to say in the 1980s, he would even consider going out of the house in a t-shirt when he wasn't going to work. He definitely wouldn't go to the store or something like that in a t-shirt. Um, my generation coming up, I remember getting my first printed t-shirt. I was like 9 or 10, so we're looking at 70 or 71. And it was a white t-shirt with Easy Rider on the front, you know, with the Captain America chopper on it and emblazoned over the top, Easy Rider. But it was so bright and so wild, I was kind of sort of almost, but not quite embarrassed to wear it because it drew so much attention. And the printed t-shirt like that was, I mean, they'd been around, but it wasn't super popular. Yeah,
We
they
were
weren't
so
for sale in every store.
we were so eclectic here in terms of background, and therefore when I started off learning things, well, hell, that starts from the beginning, little by little.
Hmm.
But culturally, um, with your friends and whatnot,
Yeah.
we were an eclectic group of people. You had African American kids, you had kids just non African American, just your regular Anglo
Hmm.
kids. There was some Indian.
Hmm.
There was all that,
Hmm.
and we hang out and stuff. But cultural norms that I would not have picked up from my mom and dad,
Hmm.
let alone my grandparents, even worse, because that's a generation even further back. I picked up with my friend just simply doing the rounds. So, um, but we all picked up this American thing, and at the time, it went in the order of, and I'm talking about cool for kids.
Hmm.
I'm not talking about adult stuff. Even though
Yeah.
we had the penny, what were they called? Penny loafers? We're
Hmm.
not penny loafers. What was the one where you put the penny in the front of the tongue of the shoe?
See, that was after I was out of school. I
No,
was
but
in my 20s wearing combat boots at that time.
it wasn't after. What I'm getting at is that that was old school stuff that was forwarded
Oh,
to me
okay.
from the. But I'm making a contrast between what would have happened with my parents and whatnot.
Hmm.
But my friends
Hmm.
and the ones we looked up to all wore rock and roll to the hilt
Hmm.
regalia. And I'm
Yep.
not talking about, I'm talking about studded
Yeah.
1980s and black and
Hmm.
shredded up t-shirts,
Yeah.
stuff that you would have, or the generation, or just slightly in your area of time
Well, that,
would
like
have
I
been
said, that was just after me. That was just after my high school time.
okay. So maybe someone that was 5 years younger than you
Hmm.
would have been
Um, yeah,
8 years younger than you.
because you were born in 75. So I'm 14 years older than you are. So you were born in 75. So by the time you're about in your rock and roll, you're talking mid 80s,
Yeah,
mid to late 1980s.
yeah.
So,
I grew up as a little kid, growing up into a teenager
mhm,
across the 80s. So I looked
right.
up to the kids that were actually in the rock and roll.
Right. So with me, it was like desert boots and tie dye and flared jeans. You didn't have straight leg jeans.
You
The
were a
only
70s phenomenon then.
Exactly. The only kids that wore straight-legged jeans were the parent had parents that made them wear it. They wouldn't let them wear flared jeans. They weren't bell bottoms, but they had the flared out leg and engineer boots or just old canvas tennis shoes. Especially for play. But you always wore a decent pair of shoes to school. I could wear blue jeans, but they had to look nice. No faded jeans. If they were starting to fade, they got relegated over to play jeans and the new deep indigo blue jeans. Those were what you wore to school. And along with, and I saw also still wore corduroys. Corduroy
I
was
had a pair.
still a thing.
I had a pair.
Oh, I had many. But it wasn't until I was in like the fifth or sixth grade that I was allowed to wear t-shirts to school. It was always the button-up shirt. And then I kind of went off on that other tangent. I wanted the tie dye and I wanted all the other stuff because everybody else was wearing it. It was cool. Then it started to go, the culture kind of split, and you had all the disco people over here. Then you had all the other, they were referred to basically as long haired, maggot infested, dope smoking FM types. Whether you did anything like that or not, if you weren't into the disco thing, oh, you must be one of those FM radio guys. Yeah, I am. You know, I don't
My
want to
dad
hear
must,
a 3 minute edited version. So,
my parents, but mostly my dad, must have been accepting but completely, um, um, like the air out of a tire, deflated about it because I went full rock and roll, and to him, he associated that with hippies, and I grew
well,
out my hair over my shoulders, and all the associated ideologies. I
mhm.
could imagine him as a developed, the mind, thinking all the crap that I was picking up at school,
Where
and I
did I
could
go
think,
wrong?
well, yeah, he went. I mean, they didn't go wrong anywhere. It's just by default
Hmm.
they ended up having a child in a country that had a particular set of cultural things that were happening,
Right.
and that child is basically, you know, absorbing everything that he's growing up with, and so he would
Well,
have been, to a degree, understanding it. I mean, he was quite. I mean, I
mhm.
have newspaper articles where he was interviewed,
Sure.
where he's quite proud of his son. And my son is you see that boy of mine,
Hmm.
he's an American citizen. They were talking about Cubans,
Hmm.
and well, I've shown the post before, but the point is, at the same time, this idea of growing your hair, and this association with those
Yep.
dirty hippies
Yep.
would have been a shock to him.
Well, and I went through the same thing with my hair. I didn't want a flat top anymore. I didn't want that crew cut. I wanted the longer hair. But by the time I was old enough to really care about anything like that, it had become a lot more acceptable. And my dad got rid of his crew cut as well and started letting it grow out. So, he wasn't right there in lockstep with me or anything, but it's hard to describe the men's style during that time because it kind of just went 100% comfort. You had the leisure suit Larry types over here, dressed from head to toe in polyester, and then you had the blue jeans and t-shirts guys over here, and that was me. You know,
Yeah,
um, I wanted comfort. I didn't care about style, but I did try to keep clean and neat because, at that age, you're wanting to impress the girls. Just so happened the girls that I was hanging out with were of the same style. Yes, they wore nice things, but they weren't out to try to impress the disco crowd. And in fact, we just laughed at those people because it's like, look at them. The circus is in town. I mean, come on. These guys can't even walk on these stilts shoes that they're wearing, the platform shoes. We made fun of them.
I
But
think I
that was our version of rebellion, the longer hair and the more relaxed total comfort style. I mean, I didn't have holy jeans or anything, but I had, my hair was combed, but it wasn't greased back or anything like that. And, there was no crease down the front of my pant legs or anything like that. It was just 100% relaxed. And I've never left that. So, if anything, I'm still stuck in the 70s because I'm a blue jeans t shirt kind of guy.
was probably an odd for to some people. Now looking back at it, I have a little bit more wherewithal. I've always been slightly, and the reason I say that is that I would pick up things like 17, 18 years old or
Hmm.
younger. I'd end up at a Jewish, for no freaking reason at all, at a Jewish bookstore, and
Hmm.
I'd buy like instructional material on how to read Hebrew and just weird stuff that now thinking in terms like of observations and stuff, um, stuff that maybe my friends weren't. I mean, everybody has their thing, but I
Hmm.
go into these eclectic, weird directions and stuff. But all at the same time consuming and like who can say where these type of things come from? But all at the same time consuming the rock and roll standards of my time,
Hmm.
which incidentally, not everybody was on about.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Some people were honest to goodness, straight laced,
Hmm.
what we would call preppy at the
Hmm.
time vibes.
Yeah. Not
Um,
not quite the sweater tied around the neck, hanging over the back, but close.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that it's well, you would know, but there was a tapestry of stuff going on.
Yeah.
But um, things like that. I'm sorry, with that long hair.
Hmm.
Um, to people from the generation prior,
Hmm.
because my dad was a 1940s generation.
Yeah.
Make no mistake about. I mean, he was born in '42.
Hmm.
Um, but he would have grown up in the like adulthood in the '50s. But or you get what I'm pointing at.
Hmm.
Like into your I guess you would say becoming a full adult like 20 or 18, 20 and whatnot into the 50s, early 50s. Or no, I'm sorry, that's not right. He would have matured across the 50s, um, 40s and 50s. And the point is that for them, they would have seen a long hair, and that's not necessarily true because John Lennon would have been born in the 40s at some point.
Right, but he was doing when the Beatles first started. He was still doing the very. They had
Okay, who froze? Me or Mark? Please respond quickly because this is a weird Twilight Zone area. If it's me, it's me. If it's Mark, it's Mark. It could be that this time it's me. I'm not seeing the. I'm not seeing the. Mark froze. Okay, so that means I'm live, which means this is half dead air. Okay, that's good because I'm getting the messages here. And Mark is really pulling this one for a long roll here. There's no quick in comments. Um, while we wait for him, I will say that everything he said was absolutely wrong, and everything I said was right. And dang it, that's it. No. Hopefully, his internet returns. But while we wait, see now I'm gonna have to do what many a times Mark has done. I'll just vamp off of this. Do you guys still hear me? Because I'm totally confused. If the whole staff isn't here, I'm like a deer in the headlight. Let's see if that's true. Am I still here with you? As much as here can be called here. Okay, so I'm still here. Okay, so I will say this as far. So I was trying to sort of get into the that difference between the long hair and the people from the prior generation not being able to sort of figure that. Although there was crossover, so there's always crossover, and we forward that to the next generation. So essentially, that's why a person like Mark and I can dialogue over things that would have been a foot in his generation and maybe not quite a foot in mine, but my generation lagged over into, or I'm sorry, his generation lagged over into mine. And so then you have this continuum. But I don't know that in the 19, scratch that. I don't know that in the 2000s, that continuum is so clear cut as what we have had in the past during all of our generations due to the advent of the internet. Once you throw in the internet aspect where people stop acquiring culture from a commonwealth, which we have talked about in the past, you now get into pockets of culture, even though there's crossover at any case, because we do exist in the same apparent world, but it's not as hard drawn lines as it was prior. And so that's sort of what I've been hinting at, which obviously it's an obvious thing everybody's um but which puts us in a weird place right now. I mean, heck, there's a lot of weird stuff going on that speaks to the situation of not one source or a few select sources that ties everybody together with each other. Like we've mentioned in the past, maybe all of us have seen one too many episodes of Happy Days, regardless of how old or what stage in life, as far as decades, we all have that continuum in our respective generations. But I was watching a video where they were saying something, young kids were saying, what was that TV show where there was a bunch of people in, and they were describing 1980s TV shows that they were referring to as punchlines, but weren't quite getting the individuals and the titles of said TV shows, which I was picking up on, which is showing a great gap in terms of continuation. You know, something like Mork and Mindy. Many of you would have grown up as you would have been teenagers, whereas I, roughly teenagers, whereas I was a little kid, preteen, watching Mork and Mindy. We have the same reference point, but processed differently because of our age variation. So, but stuff that came prior would have tagged along for the ride for me as a derivative, Miami Vice style. Linen jackets. Yeah. Oh, thank goodness.
Sorry, man. My cable went out. The
Well,
cable, it just died. I mean, my cable died, Linda's cable died, the TV went out, everything.
well, I mean, I tried to fill in the blanks.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, all of a sudden I got the spinning wheels of death, the buffering wheels going on. And I'm like, uh-oh. And I looked down and internet not connected to the internet. I went outside, the TV's locked up. Linda's like, "Are you offline?" Yes. So no, you were fine.
Well, we got through that one.
So I'm on my phone trying to figure out how I'm going to hook into StreamYard from here.
Oh, but you did see me on the phone.
Hmm?
You did see me on the phone.
Yeah, I tried to call you, but no answer.
I wasn't around.
Oh, okay. Well,
No, I
I
was
should have known you
around.
weren't. I should have known you weren't home.
Well, we survived that one.
Yeah.
Continue.
Okay. And it's stuff like that. I mean, no.
I filled in, I
Well,
filled in the blank, dude. I did a great well, I don't know great, but I filled in the blank as much as I could.
well,
But keeping it within the same topic.
well, my point in all of this is that every generation has had to go wilder and wilder and in different different directions in order to stand out and find their identity, I guess
Their
you would
niche.
say. Yeah, their style identity and their generational identity. And with us, it was a little bit longer hair. Now, when I say long hair, my parents never let my hair get down past my collar. But instead of it being, cut up tight like this around my ears, it covered my ears and was nice and long in by my standards anyway, longer than a beetle cut, but nothing like a beetle cut. Think Brady Bunch and not Greg. I didn't have the curls.
Yeah.
But it was seen as just basically, I got to differentiate myself. I'm not of my dad's generation. And yours was a lot of the rock and roll stuff, but there were also a lot of the disco was out by then, I think. But there were a lot of the yuppie preppy look going on about that time.
Talking about hair for half a second.
So,
Do I have straight hair or curly hair?
um,
According
well,
to all the times you've seen me.
well, you got a hell of a lot more of a wave and a lot more curl than I've got. So mine is pathetically, believe it or not, that's combed.
No,
It's
no, no.
pathetically straight and does what it wants to do. But yours is, it's not curly, but you've got a lot more curl to it than I do. You've got a natural wave going there.
Okay, and can you tell that?
Right now, no, because your background's black and so is
No,
your hair.
but throughout our conversations,
Yeah.
all throughout history. Let me turn on.
Yes.
So tell me if you can tell that I have.
Yes. Yours has a lot more body to it. It's not
Well, not body. I'm talking about
pathetically
curl.
straight. Yeah, there's some curl to it.
Oh, you're saying like straight, like ka-ching.
Like this, and that's it. No body to it, no curl to it at all.
Okay, the reason I say is that I don't even know because I've most of the time for all my life I've had it roughly where it's at right now, but I did have a long hair
Mm-hmm.
when I was a teenager. The reason I say that is that I have a picture of me with long hair. Very few, but I have one. And somebody had mentioned, oh, wow, that picture. I can't believe all the. And even me looking at it,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't register in my head. The person said, look at all the curls. Wow. So, in fact, if I were to let my hair grow long, it'll just flop down.
Mm-hmm.
But at the ends, it'll begin to do these curl. Have you ever seen the Interview with a Vampire?
Yeah.
You know where the girl, when
Mm-hmm.
she gets bit, her hair goes from straight and it just bunches up into curls?
Yeah.
Like it's a ring and it becomes like this little thing. It's not that exaggerated, but at the end, it starts to do these curls. And I've never thought of myself as a curl. In my mind, this is straight hair, and I'm not forcing this. This is normal.
No, but
Like this is just
you've trained your hair to comb back like that. I always wished I could do that, but I couldn't. It just flops straight forward and does what it wants to do.
no. My hair was always it. It's not straight like some sort of Asian thing. Let's say where it's just like straight down.
That's a good example of mine.
Yeah. Okay. So sort of like what you're having.
Mhm.
It's not been like that. I mean, it has had. I guess you'd
Mhm.
say body, but I wouldn't consider this curls. What I consider curls is something to the effect of that girl from Vampire
Yeah.
the Vampire thing. But however, when that person said, "Hey, but wow, look at all these curls," I actually took a second look. Even though I was looking at it, I wasn't paying attention, thinking it, and well, yeah. So
When
if I
and when it
what
gets to about here, it starts getting wavy, right? It starts getting wavy a little bit when it gets down to about here,
I
from
wouldn't
about here on
remember.
down. Well, uh, mine just starts going in weird directions. I look like I have wings because it wants to go straight down and then go out. And
Okay.
that's how I know it's time for me to get a haircut because um, this side, I'm backwards on the camera. This side right here, especially, looks like a damn bird's wing sticking out. Kind of does one of those things. Well, I guess it would be, yeah, that thing.
Yeah, I guess the curl thing. It's just an interesting aside in terms of
Mhm.
self.
So I gave up on it. I mean, I moosed and I used the not the Brill cream, got dippity do, and I used all the different things to try to get my hair to comb back like you got yours because that's what I wanted, and it just wouldn't do it. Forget
This
it.
is more like the slick back '60s style,
Hmm.
'50s style, or whatever. We've always had that sort of thing.
And every barber I have ever gone to, up to and including 2 weeks ago when I got my last haircut, every barber I have ever gone to, when they're done cutting my hair, they part it and they try to comb it over to the side and give it that little, kind of a wave right here and kind of bring it back. And I'm like, you're wasting your time. It'll be in my face before I get out in the car. I've been dealing with this for 60 years. You're
It's
wasting
just
your
how it
time.
is.
Yeah, it just does what it wants to do.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
but anyways, long hair,
mhm.
it'll do that. It'll start getting curly. Um, which is an interesting thing.
Yeah,
Um,
the longest my hair ever got was when I got out of the army. Linda and I were married. I didn't get a haircut and I didn't shave for, and now I don't remember if it was 18 months or 2 years, but it was one or the other. And I mean, beard down to here, and
yeah,
hair down, just starting to go past my shoulders. But,
lumberjack
you know,
of the Alps.
absolute just Grizzly Adams style. Me and the bear. But now long hair doesn't mean anything because everybody's got long hair.
Well,
You know, um, wearing blue jeans with holes in the knees. I mean, that's a fashion statement now. That's not rebellion. I heard one British comic said her mom and dad were swingers, and her dad ran a porn shop. She had to join a church group to rebel against her father.
that's
Yeah.
hilarious. No, the
So,
holes in the pants
mhm,
was something from the '70s into the '80s, mostly the '80s,
mhm.
and it was rebellious then.
Yeah.
But once you can buy it off the rack,
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like guys in the earring, you know. An earring was a sign of rebellion about, nonconformity and it's counterculture, and I'm not going to play by your rules, man. Until people in their 50s had earrings, then it's like, well, how different can I be?
yeah, and
It doesn't mean anything anymore, And guys, the earring thing, it's over. It's over.
I did get one. I forget what ear is supposed to be.
Mhm.
Oh, I think this. I did get one. Um, but because it was rock and roll. But
Mhm.
it's like once there's stores in the mall
Mm-hmm.
and there's a line with guys with long hair.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah. It's like tattoos. Now, I do have a tattoo, but that was back when tattoos were still kind of about the only people that had tattoos were Marines, sailors, bikers, and some tradesmen had tattoos. Now, I mean, you've got grandmothers walking their grandkids that have a tramp stamp. It's like, well, it's over. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Doesn't mean anything anymore.
And when
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're thinking the same thing I'm thinking.
and
there's
when
going
that
to be some there's going to be some rude awakenings in that full length. There's going to be there's going to be a sudden rush of everybody throwing away their full body mirrors off the closet door in about another 15 years. I can feel it. Because that tattoo that started up there is now going to be about down here, and it ain't going to be in the same shape it was when you got it.
and when it used to say me and Todd,
Yeah.
it'll the letters will scrunch up and it'll say something else. I'm not gonna go where I was gonna go.
Yeah. Jim says I think Mark could rock a mullet. Nah, I didn't get onto that either. That was the other side of that coin, the urban cowboy thing. That was like the complete polar opposite of disco, not the rock and roll thing. Rock and roll was kind of in the middle going, what the hell are you guys doing? The other side, I mean, you had guys living in San Francisco, never seen a horse in their life, all of a sudden driving four-wheel drive pickups, wearing a Stetson with the button-up shirt with the silver points on the collar, you know, and cowboy boots. And it's like, dude, you know, what the hell? I don't care if you're
Yeah,
driving a Bronco. You ain't no cowboy. Knock it off, man.
I mean it is the styles that go on, but
Mhm.
you couldn't tell today one thing from another.
No, you can't. And that's what I mean. You really have to go to extremes to stand out.
Unless it's some sort of rhinestone cowboy jumpsuit, you're not gonna your eyes will not turn.
But even then, you know, it, I don't know.
Trust me, if
Um,
you set yourself up with a rhinestone cowboy jumpsuit and you take unless you're in Las Vegas or in Key,
the Elvis one onesie.
yeah, unless you're in Las Vegas or Key West,
Mm.
it won't be people will bat an eye. They will look. If you
Yeah,
do that going down Mayberry,
but I don't see that. But I don't see that going mainstream.
oh no.
But then
Oh,
again, where do we go? I mean, Jim's talking about grunge rock finally killed disco, flannel jeans and work boots, and never seen a chainsaw in their life. That's true. Then that suddenly became the hipster thing of not too long ago. So that went out after grunge kind of petered out, but then it came back for the hipsters. And you had guys walking around in summertime in 90 degrees wearing a stocking cap and the flannel shirt and the work boots and everything else because it's ironic. No, it's friggin' stupid. You know.
yeah. I also don't pretty much align well with or see like there's people that manicure very well, guys.
Oh
They
yeah.
do eyelashes and the face, and so there's almost this whimsical appearance, and it's like, oh, but dude,
Yeah.
get some dirt on that face, will you?
But that's also a reversion back into the 40s and 50s when everything had to be, I mean, manicured and the pencil thin mustache. I mean, just clean shaven. They would never think about whiskers like I've got now. That's some homeless bum, some street urchin that would be unshaven like that. Oh no, hell no, you would never think about it.
Not in the 1800s though. In the 1800s, the mustache would have been, um, you'd be naked without it,
Yeah,
roughly about.
I'd be seen as kind of weird not having a beard.
No, you could
Yeah.
have the mustache.
Oh yeah,
Be
definitely
okay.
have the mustache. Mustache was big and the bowler hat. A lot of people make that mistake. They think that the cowboy hat, the 10-gallon or the Stetson style hat, was the big thing that cowboys wore. Most popular hat ever of that era was the well, in the UK they call it a bowler. We call it a derby hat. That was the
The
most
taxi
popular.
hat.
Yeah, the brown derby.
Oh, okay. The hard one though.
No, they weren't hard. They were felt hats.
Are you talking about the taxi driver cap, or are you
No,
talking about the
no,
one that?
the derby hat,
Okay,
like the brown derby hats.
like
Those were
the
the
one
most
that
popular. You look at just about any photo from the
Billy the
1800s.
Kid one
Yeah, they sit there with the bowler hat. Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch, all sitting there. Every one of them had a bowler.
in Cuba in the 1900s, early, which was popular everywhere, was that white boating
Hmm.
hat.
The white straw Panama. Yeah.
Yeah, that was super popular.
Hmm.
Very elegant in
Yep.
its own way.
But they
Uh,
were always dressed very well. The nice shirt. How those people wore white, I don't know back then. White was a really popular with a different colored jacket. White slacks, white shirt, black bow tie, and then a like a striped jacket and that Panama hat.
Talking about styles,
Looking immaculate. How the hell do you keep anything white? I can't keep a gray shirt gray.
you can keep anything. In terms of that,
How do you live?
no, but in terms of that, if they snap a picture of you at your best moment,
Hmm.
and that's what's left for history. But we have duck face.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, thank God that's gone away. Oh my God.
That was your grandma.
Yeah, really.
Look at
Yeah,
that. Look at that stamp on her back.
yeah. Steve, the barbershop quartet. That look exactly with the handlebar mustache and the twirled up here, with the wax and the whole thing. Yeah.
Have you seen the movie "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou"?
No, I haven't. I know about it. I know it's out there, but I've not seen
It's a
it.
great movie on many levels.
Mhm.
And just by saying that, that'll put you like 10 to 15 years away from watching it, but that's fine. Um,
It'll go on the list, maybe.
yeah, anything that's great. If I tell you, I don't even know how to reference it to you anymore. Maybe if I say, I don't know, like I'm gonna have to be suspicious about it for you to even pick up and say, well, maybe I will, because if he says so I could go in the direction of saying something to you like, Mark, yeah, it's
Well,
interesting. There's really some clever. Well, no, let me just say, I'm sort of, what do you call it when you add the barbecue? So I'm
basting.
lather. Yeah, I'm trying to base this up a little bit. What if I told you something to the effect that maybe to overcome the objection? Um, no, Mark, yeah, it's got some really insightful stuff, and I think you'd be very interested in it. But I don't know, I don't like it that much. I don't know how to go about it to
Well,
swim around it.
the easiest way is to mention it, mention a few scenes, mention who's in it. And if it sounds interesting, I'll look into it. I'll look it up. And if it's something, because like the Truman Show, you talked about the Truman Show for about a year before I watched it. And it wasn't, I was hesitant to do it. It's just it would slip my mind constantly. And finally, one day I looked into it, I looked it up, and I was like, you know what? This sounds interesting. So let me go ahead and check it out. But if it doesn't sound interesting to me, I probably won't.
Well, just to mention the part that I'm talking about,
Hmm.
there's a lot of references to early Americana,
Hmm.
visually and throughout the context of the movie,
Hmm.
and it's filmed very well. Um, and in one part, the guy, one of the protagonists, I forget his name. He's a popular um, actor, but I just forget the name. He walks into a store looking for his type of hair sauce,
Hmm.
and he says, "I'm looking for such and such hair sauce." I'm saying hair sauce, but it's like pomade slash
Hmm.
whatever. And the guy says, "Well, how about these?" And he says, "I'm looking for this one." And so this is something from like the 1930s or who knows what. And he's really into this one brand. And so there's little things like that. But it's a reoccurring theme. He's going throughout the South. They're they're escaped convicts.
Oh, okay.
But the whole story unfolds in such a wonderful way. It's got the chain gang thing. It's got all these American.
So this guy doesn't really have any of these modern references. He's looking for the brands that he knew back way back when.
No, they're in that era.
Oh, okay. All
Like
right.
they're running during the early Americana era of the South,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to find a place to hide because they broke free from the chain gang in a funny way and whatnot.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
kind of a. But along the way,
Mm-hmm.
they run into all the things that America was about, or that we
Mm-hmm.
have ideas of, including Ku Klux Klan stuff, including a Robert Johnson type guy, including uh, festivals that neighborhoods would have,
Mm-hmm.
including all sorts of reference
Okay.
points. It makes it really interesting. Um, but the pomade thing,
Mm-hmm.
considering the situation, he was hard up to get his brand,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "Oh, what kind of civilization are we living in these days?" And because he can't find his actual brand, so it's a very human and very
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know why I even mentioned it, but
Was
pomade is
it
one.
was it 30s, 40s, something like that that it was set
It
in?
feels like it. It feels like it.
Okay. Okay.
20s, 30s. It feels like 10s, 20s, 30s into the 40s.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. I'll look into it. I've heard little smatterings here and there, and I've seen the title out and about in pop culture and what have you, but I've never looked into it. So I'll check it out. Okay. Greg says 30s. Okay. All right.
Okay.
There was a, it's an old movie. Well, old by our standards nowadays anyway. Ryan and Tatum O'Neal, Paper Moon. Did you ever see Paper Moon?
No, I did not.
He's a con man back in the 30s, and he ends up somehow with this kid who is played by his real life daughter.
Okay.
And he ends up with this kid, and they start pulling cons on various thises and that's and the others, and they get into a bunch of trouble here and there. Meet up with uh, a woman played by Madeline Kahn. Very, very, very good flick, and kind of a snapshot in time of that era down south. And he's just a panty con man. Like, he would go into a store and he'd buy something with a $20 bill, and then the little girl, his daughter, would come in, two people behind him, and buy something with a $5 bill, and then she'd step away and kind of look at her change and just start crying. I gave you a $20 bill and you only gave me this much change. And the clerk would, no, you gave me a $5 bill. I gave you a $20. My grandma wrote "Happy Birthday, Addie" on the back of that $20. I gave that to you. That's my $20, and you didn't give me the change. Manager come over, look in the till, and sure enough, there's a $20 bill in there. Says "Happy Birthday, Addie" on it. Manager give her the change from the 20, and off she'd go.
Yeah.
So he got change for the 20, and she got change for the 20. Just little panty Andy stuff like that. But then they
Very good.
tried to. It's a kind of a snapshot in time of that era. It is actually a very good movie. It's a fun flick.
The first supposed documented
Mhm.
fraud case in the Americas, or at least North America,
Mhm.
was in St. Augustine, Florida, when there was a, I guess, dessert store,
Mhm.
and a guy came in and bought some sort of cupcake or whatever, dropped the coin and left. Then
Mhm.
later came back and dropped some more coins and bought more.
Mhm.
And then a lady came in, bought a cupcake, and the guy gave her change.
Mhm.
And as she's walking out the door, he said, "Wait, this is fake." And they discovered the guy as previously had made out of tin
Mhm.
coins,
Yep.
and they busted him.
Yep.
And then in the proceedings, documented, the guy said, "I know I did wrong." Something, I'm paraphrasing big time. "I know I did wrong, but the devil made me do it." That was his out, because we're talking about 1600s or whatnot.
Mhm.
Um, so one defense in the 1600s. This was Spanish Florida,
Mhm.
but one defense legally, or maybe he was being brutally honest to see if he.
The
Who
devil
would,
made
in
me.
their right mind, said them like today? If you said that, "Oh,
Well,
Your Honor, the problem is."
we talked about it before. The inventor of the character Wonder Woman um, was the first to get off by. He was found innocent by reason of insanity. He was the first person to use the insanity plea, and they let him off. Basically, he spent some time in a sanitarium and then started acting right, and he was cool after that. And he was released.
Well, you can't, depending on the situation, you can't be. If there's bodily harm, that's not normal.
No,
It's not normal. Okay, obvious. If things get out of hand with two people having an argument,
mm-hmm.
emotions run high, and something happens,
Mm-hmm.
that's in the course of a situation that two people didn't know how to get out of and became belligerent and physical.
Mm-hmm.
That's not right, but you can see how that could happen
Mm-hmm.
within the reasonable spectrum of
Yeah,
normal by getting agitated
yeah,
and getting out of hand.
yeah. You didn't set out to
Do a danger.
wake up that morning and go, "Oh yeah, I'm going to
That's
go do
one.
that." Mm-hmm.
But another thing is walking up behind someone, whacking them with a wrench, and taking their wallet.
Yeah,
Why? Because you are planning with disregard to that person's well-being.
yeah. You've shown intent. You came prepared to commit that act.
Exactly. So there's a difference. You
Major difference.
that person is not normal.
Right. I agree.
Sorry.
I agree 100%.
That is not a normal person. Sorry. It's
Mm-hmm.
not normal. No matter what wheelbarrow of gold that Mark Lindsay is carrying down the street, even at night.
It ain't nobody's business but mine.
Right.
But then again, like my grandfather said, if you are dumb enough to lay down on the tracks, you deserve every car in the train that hits you.
What I'm getting at is that although that's
I
true,
understood, and I
what,
agree with
what,
you.
what well, let me reiterate. What I'm saying is that, well, that's what I'm saying, dude. It's not, even if the temptation is there,
Mm-hmm.
whoever falls for that temptation,
That's not normal, no.
it's not normal.
No. Well, you also have to look at opportunity in that. For instance, I've heard it said, and I'm sure you've heard it said as well, that padlocks are there to keep an honest person honest. That if somebody wants to get in, they'll get in. They'll find a way to get
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
So padlocks are there to keep an honest person honest. If you lock your gate and lock your shed, chances are nobody's going to come in and try to break into your shed and rifle through your tools. But if you leave your shed standing wide open and a pneumatic nailer right there and your gate standing open, odds are somebody who may not have even thought about it, it's more likely somebody walking by will go, look at that. I bet I can get that and be out of there before he even sees it. And it'll come up missing. That doesn't mean that they didn't set out to do something wrong. The opportunity presented itself and they took it. Now that indicates a dishonest person to me. The honest person would come up, knock on the door and say, hey, somebody's going to be breaking into that. If you want to keep that, I'd close it up, or at the very least, pull the gate shut and keep going.
If you find a shovel in the middle of the road by the Acme company that you know costs $135, free game. If it's attached to a human being walking down the road and you smack them with a brick upside the head, you've now entered the
Well,
you're not normal.
even then, I think there's various layers to that too. If you find a $20 bill laying in the middle of the road and there's nobody around, well, finders keepers.
Right.
If you find a wallet laying in the middle of the road with identification in it and you take the money out of it, that's different entirely because there's identification. You may not know the person, but you know who it belongs to.
It's the
So,
same rule. It's the same rule.
yeah, I agree. It is the same rule.
If you see that there's an identity attached to it,
Mm-hmm.
that's not fair game at all.
No, not at
If you
all.
take a $20 bill detached from that
Mm-hmm.
down to your local police station and you say, "Officer, officer, I was walking down the street and I found this $20 bill.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, I'm what that dollar bill will become
Mm-hmm.
is coffee money for the police
Yeah,
because
basically.
because so
Yeah. What are they going to do?
right.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you're at the checkout stand at the grocery store and the lady in front of you turns around and $20 falls out of her wallet, yo, ma'am, you dropped something. Here you go.
If she turns around and says, "Stop harassing me," and walks away with ignoring your thing, then that $20 is yours
You look at the cashier and you go, I tried.
because there's that too. Oh,
Exactly.
get away!
The
How
other one,
dare you speak to
what
me?
the big one nowadays is I have a boyfriend.
Yeah,
Yeah. In fact, there's a couple of videos on YouTube where a guy will walk up, the woman, maybe she's got a couple of kids, maybe she doesn't. I've seen several videos of this strain along these lines. And the guy will walk up and say, "Excuse me, ma'am." And she'll just spin around and say, "I have a boyfriend." And he'll say, "Oh, okay. Well, that's good. You also have a flat tire." And she'll be like, "Oh, no. Can you help me change it?" And he's like, "No, just call your boyfriend. Keep going." You know?
yeah. The problem with that is that I mean, not to. Well, actually, you could, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm just making an example.
Who knew we
Men have
would
been
get on this?
portrayed. I'm sorry.
I said, who knew we would get on this? But yeah, I started it.
Men would men have been portrayed
Mhm.
in subtle and not subtle ways as disposable,
Well,
as second tier,
predators. We're predators. Even
or
worse than that, we're
predators.
dangerous.
Um, all the things I could go on, but um,
Yeah.
so that the expectation, and I see it. So look, the problem is, it is a big problem
It is.
because if when I approach a person, I approach to have an exchange for whatever purchase or whatever the case. I'm doing so with one first initiating understanding that is sort of like a level playing field of exchange in terms of we're exchanging um, ideas or a comment without adding baggage to who the person
Mm-hmm.
is not, at the very least outwardly,
Mm-hmm.
because you could get signals like that.
Yeah.
But the signals are a tool that prepares the human being in case of fraud, threat,
Yeah. Sure.
um, all these number of things.
Yeah. You have to put your defensives up. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that the person you're engaging with, just because your senses are listing off associations, it doesn't mean that the person has done any. They will show you
Mm-hmm.
according to their behavior and conversation and whatnot.
Sure. Well.
So I'm getting at, well, to wrap it up, to wrap up what I'm trying to say is that more and more women in those encounters, brief encounters. I've noticed it here in Miami. And I'm pretty good at observation. It doesn't mean that I get it right all
Hmm.
the time,
Yeah.
but I can. There are people like that, and everybody has that too. I mean, I can sort of gauge a generalization of if a person is being negative towards you,
Yeah.
being flippant.
Hmm.
Apart from their voice, their facial, you can sort of arrive at a generalized, what these people. Sometimes it fails you.
Hmm.
So what I'm getting at is that I've seen more and more of that.
Oh yeah, big time. I'll steal a line from Dave Chappelle. Chivalry is dead because women killed it. Now, I'm not so cynical that I'm uncivil, but I'll be straight. I was taught if you approach a door, doesn't matter where you're going. If you're going into a store or a restaurant, doesn't matter whatever. As a guy, most of us of this generation, we understand the door rule. That you're the first guy there, you open the door and let everybody else through,
Even if it's a man,
even if it's a guy.
that's
Exactly.
correct.
If you're the first guy there, you get the door and you hold it for everybody coming through.
Yeah,
Most guys know
yeah.
that as they're coming through, they take over door duty and he'll grab the door and say, "Thank you, man." And you can let go. And now he's got the duty.
And funny enough, just a quick insertion here. And by the way, we were taught that
Mm-hmm.
by a man and woman in a general sense, or not general in a specific sense. Our parents and our grandparents and what those lessons were taught to us. They were taught to me.
And just observational too, because you not only see your dad doing that, you see other people doing that too. You
No,
see the couple going in front of you. He gets the door and holds it, lets his wife go through. My dad reaches up and takes over the door, and me, my brother, and my mom go through. And then the next guy behind, he takes over the door. It just you take it in. Oh, okay, that's how that works.
and what I'm and the suggestion that I'm trying to
Hmm.
also add on to all this, which is what you said attaches to all that directly. But what I want to inject,
Hmm.
I'll say it like this: if what our moms and dads taught us on
Hmm.
in how to behave is not good enough, then nothing is.
Well, but you only have to be yelled at one time about, I can get the door myself. I'm not helpless. To where you go, why bother?
Right?
I can't speak for you, but I can tell you for me, I am more likely to hold a door for a man than I am for a woman now.
It's
Just
funny.
simply because you don't know who's going to be the one to start yelling and making a scene.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, and I'll be even bolder here. It's bad news for guys nowadays across the board.
Yeah.
If a person is engaged in a relationship or
Hmm.
fixing to or something even more of a serious thing, the list of problematic or potential because
Hmm.
so the uneducated people that came before us that
Hmm.
just couldn't put two and two. It just so happens that they were the ones that built stuff because their predecessors. But forget that. Um, if that's the attitude, which it is in a lot of cases, which
Hmm.
it is in a lot of cases, and I understand rebellion,
Hmm.
but at the same time, give me a freaking break. But if that's the case, then the threat, because of uh, the the potential risk, better said, for guys is that much more. Because back then, so look, things like, for better or worse, something like opening a door,
Hmm.
I can even relate to something like church on
Hmm.
Sundays. And I'll explain why, which is obvious, but just the fact that there's this cultural thing, forget the philosophical of it, just the sheer thing that you have this thing where the family dresses up and there's courtesy with the neighborhood people, just all that.
Hmm.
And then you could be a rambunctious little kid running through the mud. but just that.
Yeah.
But well, not today.
You
Compound all.
behave. Yeah. Yeah. You behave. You behave. Yeah. Well, church was a different setting altogether. So
I'm
yeah,
just using it as an anchor.
but you're absolutely right because you were on your best. You were on your best behavior for church because it wasn't just mom and dad that were going to let you have it. I mean, you faced scorn from the pastor and the man upstairs. So you're being judged from a higher level than just mom and dad there. So
And,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
was rambunctious, my friend.
Oh, you and me both. I
I
didn't want to
was
be in
very.
church. I didn't want to
I
sit
was.
on the pew. I wanted to crawl around underneath them.
I was very mean one time to a yeah. I was very. I rebelled against everything in my, but not enough to appear rebellious. But I was. It's a weird thing, dude. But yeah, there's things I look back on, and I wish I would have been more respectful in certain cases.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we all have those. Here's one from Jim Dockrell. This is a good one here. Let people with just a few groceries go ahead in line. Do you still do that?
I've done that for women, and rarely for guys. That's
Well,
where I draw the
I'll
line.
do it for guys. If I've got a basket that's, I've got 20, 30 things and the guy's walking up and he's got a Coke and a Snickers, I'm like, go ahead, dude.
What I'll do if it's a guy, if it's a lady, I'll say, "Oh, go ahead." If it's a guy, I'll look at him and says, "Pretty crappy results you got going." No, I'm kidding. I'll do it. I was gonna say it a different way.
It's situational,
It depends.
it depends because I've been that guy, especially around lunchtime, and the time of day does matter. If it's anywhere around lunch, say from like 11 to 1:30 in the afternoon, and you see a guy, he's got a sandwich and a thing of iced tea, go ahead, man. You got to be somewhere. I don't. I'm on my time.
The "I've been that guy" is
Mhm.
the key.
Yeah.
If you can acknowledge the person in front of you as a human being, and that comes attached with certain amounts of, I guess you'd call it casual courtesy.
Well, yeah, and that's a lot to it because even on like a job site, I don't know if you've worked big construction sites or anything, but
Of
it's an
course, I have.
unspoken law. It's an unspoken rule that the guy with the load has the right of way. You're walking down a corridor and a guy's got two toolboxes and a roll of wire over his shoulder. He's got the load. So you step into one of the rooms and let him go. And he's going to step into a room if you've got a guy pushing a hand truck with a bunch of cinder blocks stacked up on it. The guy with the biggest load has the right of way. That's unspoken. You don't even have to think about that. And I'm kind of that way with other stuff as well. You got three kids and a grocery cart, and you're trying to you're trying to ramrod this outfit and still get all the groceries and everything. Chances are I'm going to go ahead to the next aisle and do my shopping on that one, and then I'll come back when you've vacated the premises. There ain't nothing I need on that aisle bad enough to fight through that crowd, so forget it.
One time I'm walking Vigo years ago, and a lady's walking, and Vigo jumps happy. All the signals, you're looking at my dog, and he's small.
Mhm.
And she's like, ah! She's like cowering and grabbing onto the bushes. And I'm like, this is this is right here. This is the example.
Mhm. Yeah.
He wasn't jumping on her,
No.
but we were crossing paths, and just before she did a spectacle, I don't know why, and I'm like, okay. I mean, look, there's more of that, but I grew up, and so here's the thing about all of it. It's not like back in the 80s or 70s or
Mhm.
prior. We were complete savages. I remember
Oh
growing up.
yeah.
I remember growing up and having complete respect for all the women.
Yeah. You
Sure,
had respect for everybody older than you, and maybe girls had cooties, but you weren't mean to them.
no. What I'm getting at is exactly that. It makes no sense to me. We grew up
Yeah.
with women and men, but we grew up with doing all these things to enrich our lives as kids.
Mhm.
But these people today, nowadays, think that they're the vanguards of equalization of the
Of
different groups.
morality, yeah.
And I'm like, and so, and what that's saying is that's saying about us in a broad sense, but it's not even in a broad sense because they'll take any person and they'll look at them and
Hmm.
they're making all these awkward assumptions
Hmm.
that are based on stupid stuff. Okay, so if you get stupid, well, here a block of stupid, and you add another stupid on top of, and you keep mounting stupid concepts and ideas, you have this big what's that game where you stack blocks?
Oh, Jenga, yeah.
Yeah, you have this huge Jenga of bull crap, and these people. So basically,
Well,
I
that's
don't
why.
even remember the girls in my era
Mhm.
being so freaking ridiculous about all these things.
Well, that's why more and more people are just checking out. They don't want to be around people. They just don't want to be around people. Think about it. Think about how easy it is nowadays to avoid people. You don't have to go to the store. Well, you do a little bit, but you can get online and you can do the order and they'll push around the big carts with the blue baskets on it and they'll bag it all up for you. You've already paid for it. You get there, you text them and they'll bring it out to your car. Pop your trunk. You don't even have to get out. They'll just put it in the trunk for you. Wave.
Yeah, yeah.
We go out of our way to avoid people now.
Well, the
And
problem
in the
is,
process, we've learned how to not be we've not learned how to behave around people. I mean, they talk about homeschooling kids as well, they're not socialized. They don't know how to deal with social situations. Really? Have you looked at your graduates lately? They know how to deal with social situations, you know?
the whole thing is screwed. When you go somewhere and it happens to be someone behind the register, as an example, I've said this a million times, but what the hell? The next person in line, hello, how are you? Oh, good day. Did you find everything all right? Whatever. It's not that I want an attachment to this person today and for years. It's
Mhm.
just that these small courtesies
Mhm.
across the side. And by the way, you could argue that they have every right to no, depending on the policy of the company. But if the idea is to propagate some sort of casual, I don't even want to call it decency, a casual
It you're
humanity.
you are supposed to appear friendly and approachable. You're supposed to make sure that they've got what they needed. And I don't know if they do that where you're at, but up here, it's less and less, hey, how you doing? It's more and more, did you find everything okay?
You know who
We
said you
we hear that more and more often.
the other day a cash register. She wasn't from around here. She's
Hmm.
like a student
Yeah.
girl, and I get to the line. She turns, looks at me, and says, "Did you find everything all right?"
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Strung together, I felt like this maybe 18, 19, 20-year old girl
Hmm.
transported me back to 1987 at one of the stores in the mall because she was decent.
Hmm.
She, she didn't. She didn't
Shouldn't give you an attitude.
avoid eye contact.
Hmm.
She didn't ignore saying hello.
Hmm.
She was friendly, like, but every other one just about. Not
Hmm.
every one, but there's enough that it's
Yeah.
noticeable. Like some of them, I mean, you're gonna find that in the society. But what I'm getting at is that you see that everywhere.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you do get jaded. You do get tired of things. I understand it's an 8-hour shift. You've got 2 hours to go. You've been on your feet all day with one endless line of scanning groceries after another. I get it. But please remember, folks, I didn't do it. I just want to get my stuff and get out. What I used to have to tell the floor people in the casino was people come here because of the service. We have two casinos, one right next door to us, one across the street from us. They don't have to come here and spend their money. They can go to there. They can go across the street. We have the exact same games they have, and they have the exact same games we have. The only thing we can give them that's any different is better service. So I don't care if you are having the absolute worst day of your life. You can't let those people out on the floor know that. Because when you go out there and you start bringing them down, nobody wants to hang around with a bummer. They're going to leave. And the whole point of this business is to keep them happy so they'll keep putting money in those machines. And it's the same thing with retail. You have to make them feel welcome. You have to be friendly and approachable because they don't have to shop at your store. They'll go to a store where they're treated better and buy the exact same products you're selling. So,
The caveat is that I'm also splicing this issue that you're talking about
mhm.
into gender.
uh,
There's a discrepancy in that behavior as
there
well.
there is, and now that doesn't mean you have to be a doormat, and you do not have to take abuse. I've
Yeah, but
kicked lots of people out, but um, it's always a smile and a hi, how you doing, kind of thing, whether you know that person or not.
next time I go to shop, I'm
Hmm.
gonna say to the lady, "It's ma'am."
Well, you go right on ahead. But see, those people set out to start an argument. So, and it's just like, I got no time for you.
I love it. I love it. It's so no because it's like,
I
are you
got no time for
serious?
you.
Why don't we?
You know what? I'm really sorry daddy never bought you a pony, but you're in your 40s. It's time to grow up and get over that now. The world
I
isn't about you.
I
So just
identify as a
get over it.
20-year-old.
And I identify as a Cocker Spaniel, big, fat, hairy deal. It's 11:50. Get your stuff and get out. I'll give everybody the benefit of the doubt until you act like an idiot. Then I'm going to treat you like an idiot. But see, you and I were raised in a different era. We were taught to respect our elders. We were taught to respect other people's things. And we were taught keep your hands to yourself. And if it ain't yours, don't monkey with it. Leave it alone. It's not yours. Doesn't matter. Well, I didn't know that was Jimmy's. Well, you knew it wasn't yours. Leave it alone. And that's not the case anymore. You know, I see kids saying things to their parents that if my dad even thought I could put those words together, oh Lord, I wouldn't be able to sit down for a week. My
I
mother,
mean,
I threw a fit one time, and I remember this. May have been 2 years old. I threw a fit one time in a grocery store. One time in a grocery store because I wanted something, and Dad said no. My mother scooped me up, swatted me on the rear end, and took me outside. And we sat in the car, and Dad finished shopping. And he was not happy about having to do the shopping because of me.
that ruined your adventure, didn't it?
I learned real quick that nothing good's going to come from that. Don't do that no more. And when Dad said no, there was a reason. Now, he didn't say no just to say no. More often than not, if I wanted a candy bar, I'd get it. Or if I wanted a certain cereal, more often than not, I'd get it. But I learned real fast that if I threw a temper fit for some reason, I didn't get nothing. I got worse. But now it's, come on, buddy, we got to get up and we got to go do this. We got to do that. Baloney.
Give me the
Baloney.
keys to the car, Dad, and
You're not
shut up.
you're not supposed to be your kid's best friend. You're supposed to be their parent. You're supposed to teach them. And so a lot of these people, that's what they act like. Their entire life, the way they've gotten what they wanted is by throwing a fit. And they're in their 30s now and nothing's changed. And it's all about attention. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And I say this broadcasting on YouTube. So,
Well, but we're sort of turning mirrors,
yeah. And
and
that's
we're
part of that self-realization too, because we all have that egotistical streak in us. And you have to have a little bit of an ego to put yourself out to other people, you
well,
know.
well. Let me talk about that.
Okay.
So, apart from DNA,
Hmm.
in psychology, which crosses lanes for certain studies, they've discovered markers on that. And again, markers means a propensity to. It doesn't mean
Hmm.
hit the gavel.
Hmm.
This is the sentencing,
Hmm.
but there's a probability leaning
Yeah.
that they and the more people that they study that have alleles, a pair of genes that coincide in that space, interact in such a way that, and so there's a
Hmm.
tendency for humans to go in one direction.
Yeah.
Okay, so the idea of this extrovert type
Hmm.
thing, that's a real thing. Like there's people that
Hmm.
are extroverts in the real world, we know, and then there's shy people. Um, in order to do something like this, um, you have to have some of that extroversion to a degree or
Hmm.
another. Um, but a lot of people are doing it, and so I guess what I'm getting at is this: the human spectrum of extrovert,
Hmm.
or what was the word you used? Using the word
A little bit of egotism.
egotism.
You have to have a little bit of an ego to do it.
Okay, so that is included in that because it
Hmm.
takes some sort of boldness to lay out a series of things in
Hmm.
conversation in public and whatnot. Okay,
Yeah, you have to be a little bit confident in your skin and a little bit of confident that you at least know something about what you're talking about.
so that is a psychological categorized trait, but
Hmm.
it's also something that's been measured in DNA. And again, I
Hmm.
emphasize to be clear that these things are
A propensity toward, not a cut and dried thing. Fact.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Just as soon as you say that, another gene could interact with that previous gene in a way that is not understood,
Hmm.
which cancels out something and favors something. So there's all
Sure.
these things happening. So, but in the big picture,
Hmm.
this egotism is something that all humans share on a
Hmm.
spectrum.
Yeah.
So there's nothing, I guess the point that I was trying to get at is that everything that one human being is capable of, all human beings is capable of
Oh,
because they
yeah.
fall under the category of human beings. And it's not
Sure.
like there's one Superman that doesn't qualify. So, in other words, we all share in these things, some more, some
Oh, yeah.
less. And yeah,
When we throw out the attention seeking and just get down to brass tacks, I'm constantly surprised at how little differentiates us from one another. Sure, we all have different wants, we have different needs, we have different, desires. Sure, we all have different financial situations, we all have different social situations and everything. But if you sit down and just talk to folks, there is a hell of a lot more that we have similar than separates us. And that's why I keep saying people are people.
we
You
do have
know,
a lot that
I think we have more in common than most people will even acknowledge, let alone give credit for.
it depends on what you're talking about. In a general
Well,
sense,
sure, it's on a sliding scale, but and there's going to be differences. There's going
no,
to be
no
outliers,
it's
but
on a sliding scale for sure.
mhm.
But depending on what you're talking about in particular, will determine us judging how close or far. So within all those categories of close and far is where you get your variety of different ideas or interests or
Sure.
whatever this or that. But we have the same basic needs. We have
Sure.
the same generalized concerns, but if you hone in on it, then that might change a little bit here, a little bit there. But yeah, we're human. We fall under the category of any anything that you are susceptible to
Hmm.
in your day-to-day, psychologically, physically. All these things are applicable to me and every other human being,
Exactly.
depending on the roll of the dice or this or that. In other
Uh,
words, yeah, yeah, if you sit with someone.
and you don't. All you have to do is be observant too. I mentioned this, I think, on our second or third episodes. People watch when you're downtown. The next time you got to go to a grocery store or any event or any place where you have multiple entrances, just watch people. The minute a door opens, they will change course to head for that open door. And it doesn't matter if you're male, female, young, old, your ethnic background, anything, people will gravitate to an open door. Um, you have you're at a some sort of a potluck or something like that, and there is an open loaf of bread and a closed loaf of bread right next to it. And that open loaf, all that's in there is two heels, just the two end pieces. Are you going to grab those two end pieces, or are you going to open up the new loaf? It's right there ready for you. You have your choice. Most folks are going to open up that new loaf and skip that first heel and take the next two.
I've been bold every now and then. I've grabbed that one-sided frickin' piece of bread and I've
Yeah.
chomped down on it. It's not satisfying.
Yeah, but did you turn around and look somebody in the eye when you took that first bite?
No.
There's the difference. But we all do little things like that. I mean, it's just part of being a person.
Have you seen that?
if,
Have you?
if you if you have your choice of gas pumps, are you going to get the one that's out in the weather, in the sunshine, or in the rain, or are you going to take the one on the inside? All four pumps are open, or are you going to get underneath in the shade, out of the rain or out of the sun? Probably going to go for in the shade if the
Yeah,
hose will reach.
we're all looking
So
for advantage,
exactly.
the best set of circumstances.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to get behind the two old people holding hands, trundling through the door, looking like, and you just hope they make it through before they fall down. Nobody wants to get behind them. I don't care who you are.
No one, no one wants, no one wants to go to the circus and take a photo with Boo Boo, the farting clown.
Right.
I mean,
That's why so many kids cry in Santa Claus's lap, because they know last week that's what he was doing at some birthday party.
oh ho ho, I saw what? No, I'm not gonna go there.
Jim Dockrell said, we never said we were bored at home because the parents would find you something to do. Oh, yeah. Remember that? Did your mom or dad ever say that?
I never was bored. All my okay, this is one thing I've told you this before,
Hmm.
but I'm gonna tell you. In my life,
Hmm.
unless I'm waiting at an office
Hmm.
or I'm stuck, but all my life, I've always found something to do that was interesting to me, even when I lacked. Sure, I'd get pissed. Oh, I want to go to the movies. Please let me have $3 to go to the
Hmm.
matinee thing or whatever the hell. And they couldn't. I just end up bitching up a storm a little bit and
Hmm.
then noticing that didn't work and then I'd go off and figure something else out. But did I've never sat there and said, "Oh, there's nothing in life to do." There's a bunch of like if right now, if my whole thing that I'm doing right now,
Hmm.
here's the maybe this is the reason why. If right now I end up finishing all my stuff in terms of the genealogy, this and that,
Hmm.
for some miraculous reason,
Hmm.
I have a mess that will keep like I know that I have weeks ahead of me of
Well,
organization.
and that was the whole thing about it. I mean, your Saturday morning cartoons are over with. Your friends can't come out and play because they went to the mall with their mom and dad, or they went shopping with their mom and dad, so they're not around, and you're just kind of bumming around. You want to go outside and do something. You've never had that, man. There ain't nothing to do.
I'll take that back. Sometimes on a Saturday back
Hmm.
in the 80s,
Hmm.
cartoons were over with, I'd have my meal,
Mm-hmm.
my early morning breakfast. Sometimes
Yeah.
my mom would my mom would sometimes go to the McDonald's and bring me the food as a little kid
Mm-hmm.
because I want the big breakfast, and she'd bring the big breakfast because it had the pancakes and whatnot, or was
Mm-hmm.
that the hot cakes and either or, I
Mm-hmm.
forget now. But I mean, my mom, it just I couldn't. Anyways, and then I'd get on my bike and then haul butt over to my different friend's house,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd go from one friend to the other, and if they weren't there in some odd occasion, I
Yeah.
ended up back home. But by the time I got back home,
Mm-hmm.
I'd end up reading comic books or music, and I was never bored really.
Well, but see, that was the thing. You couldn't say that you were bored. You can do anything once, and you do it once. And Dad, there ain't nothing to do. Really? Well, you can start with cleaning your room, and if your room's in ship shape, let's go out in the garage. You can clean out the garage. See,
My
so
dad,
you never said that.
my dad did tell me, and my mom too, clean your room. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, what? And I asked myself, these are they watching American TV? Because that's like a standard that you see on TV. I mean, it's for everybody. Like it doesn't matter whether it's people in Cuba or not. I mean, all kids have to clean their room. But like in my mind back then, I'm like, where are these people? This is what I thought. Where are these people picking up all these freaking rules? Like I was always figuring out a way to frickin' worm around a closed door, and it's just been the way I've been.
Well,
I
I did
understand.
too, but
Yeah,
when there ain't no fun in hitting a baseball by yourself. You want your friends, you know. Yeah, I can go ride my bike by myself, but that's not fun. I want to go out there and ride bikes with my friends.
that's the better way.
So, you know, and so it's just like, you're sitting there in a room full of toys. And as I got older, I'm out there in the front yard. I've got more outdoor games than I could play in a lifetime. I've got two or three bicycles because I was always working on bicycles, putting them together and selling them and this, that, and the other. Um, uh, there was always something to do. It's just I wasn't in the mood to do any of those things, and I wanted to be a giant pain in the ass.
Oh no, I
Mom, I
was a pain
got
in the
nothing to
ass.
do. We'll go clean up your room.
No, I had my pain in the ass moments, but in a general sense,
Yeah.
they would they all to this day my aunt still says, my parents obviously aren't around anymore to say, but they said it too. But my aunt's still around. She mentions it whenever the subject sort of ends up there.
Mm-hmm.
They would place me even as a little kid wherever they placed me, and maybe a toy or whatever. I would pretty much just enjoy whatever the heck was going on. It's weird but I didn't make such a fuss that I can remember, but maybe I'm favoring myself because it's me. The only time that stuff got really screwed up was when I became the hormones of teenage years,
Mm-hmm.
it really got wild because I really like I was. Have you heard that Queen album or
Mm-hmm.
song? Man on the Prowl,
Yeah.
Man on the Prowl.
As soon as
I
I got my driver's license, that was me.
Dude, I was wild. I
My
was
my
wild.
my parents made two mistakes. They let me get my driver's license the day after my 16th birthday, and the main reason it was the day after was because my birthday was on a Sunday that year. I got my driver's license on my 16th birthday, and they said that we had a little 71 Dodge Colt 4-door. They said if you make the last two payments on this car, we'll sign the title over to you. And I'm working for a dry cleaner for, I don't know if I was making $1 an hour. I busted my hump to make as much money as I could. And that was my car. I was all over the place in that. I was all over the South Bay area in that car. I drive to towns I'd never been to just to say that I've been there. I was everywhere.
When so to just I want to do a parallel without me knowing.
Mm-hmm.
I knew later, but when I was 15, I knew I could go get a job.
Mm-hmm.
and I went to McDonald's. It took me a while, but I got a job like right away. Nobody told
Mhm.
me, nobody, nothing. At age 15,
Yeah,
man,
that's what I
nobody,
did with the dry cleaners.
none of my friends that I remember were doing that at all. I went straight to do that because I wanted money to buy stuff.
Mhm.
Like I was on it.
Yep.
Um, Nobody had to inform us. But anyways, parallel to that, when my father recounted and left it in writing, so that's why I'm able to retell it. I wouldn't have known unless he wrote out a lot of biographies. And when my father got here in 62,
Mhm.
in 68, my grandparents were finally able to come over.
Mhm.
So my father spent from 62 to 68 here without his parents, from the age of 20 to 20 something. And then in a couple of years later, he married my mom, which had also come over. But anyways, when my grandparents come over, he had that apartment rented out in Little Havana,
Mhm.
and they had just newly arrived in the United States. They didn't speak English. They
Mhm.
never really learned English. They went to work at other Cuban establishments and
Mhm.
whatnot. And but that day or the day after, that day after, they arrived. They're taken to the apartment where my father had been living, holding that apartment for them.
Mhm.
Um, and so they settled in. And the next day they woke up, and my grandfather was missing. And they waited a little bit. He wouldn't return, and they started getting worried and worried and worried and worried and worried. And my father wrote this down, and so he said, "Well, I got to go look for him." So my grandmother was worried. Where's my grandfather, Eloy?
Mhm.
And he walked around the blocks like, "What the heck is going on here?" Remember, the family had arrived. There
Mhm.
was nobody. I mean, there were other people of the community, but it's not like this is. There's no cell phone. This is back in the '60s.
Sure.
Um, And then they saw my grandfather walking from the main road back.
Mhm.
Early in the morning, he got up and right away went to where a truck picks up people looking for day work
Mhm.
to go pick fruit.
Mhm.
And the truck would bust them out. They would
Yeah.
pick fruit, and the bus would bring them back to the Little Havana area or something like that, or along the way, every
Mhm.
stop or whatnot. And he just went right away. How he found that out? What he went and did that? He just got on and went to, and they were worried sick. And
He just went out and got a job, and they didn't know it.
they didn't know it. And my father was so proud of that attitude that
Mhm.
my grandfather took that he wrote it down and saved it.
Mhm.
For me to have, because frankly, that's me. That's to hand it down to me, and it's such a wonderful thing. But in any
Yeah.
event, the point is, going and getting a job without any particular
Mhm.
notion. His was more serious because he's an adult in a new
Yeah.
country, and
He's
I'm
got
just
to
a kid,
provide for his wife. That's his job. Yeah.
right? And I'm just a kid wanting money so I can buy rock and roll records in
Well,
my
I
area.
was more or less the same way. I mean, we used to go to this. We had an open campus in high school the last year, as a matter of fact. After that, it became a closed campus. But we were on open campus, kind of almost on a college type of a system where you had a class here. You may not have another class for 20 minutes, or you may have a class in 5 minutes and you got to bust your butt to get to the next class. And my lunch, I would go across the street to this little shopping center and I'd go hang out in a donut shop. And I got to know the owner, and I'd sit there and I'd have a Coke and a maple bar or something like that. And it was be a bunch of us in there. And got to know the owner. And he come up to me one day and he said, "Hey, the dry cleaners next door need somebody to help them work on stuff. You're a little bit mechanical, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And so he said, "Yeah, go over there and tell them I sent you over there, and you'll do an application and what have you." And I filled out the application. I had to go get parental consent, and I brought that into my dad. He says, "You want to go to work?" He says, "You're not leaving school." I said, "No, this is after. This would be after school. It's right across from the high school. I'll take some extra clothes with me and a backpack or what have you. You really want to do this?" I said, "Yeah." I was 15. Okay, and he signed the permission. We There was more discussion than that, but it was doing that. And I had my permit at the time. I was still learning to drive. And we were having this discussion over the course of the month while I was learning. He said, if you keep your grades above a B average, we can add you to our insurance and it's cheaper. So you got to keep your grades above a B. If they drop down, I'm not going to insure you and you'll have to pay for your own insurance. And so that was my incentive to do well in school. And did all that. And I went and I got a job. And that was what made them think, well, look, he's trying to be responsible. Let's give him a chance. And they were going to trade that car in anyway.
Son, if you can get an F minus,
So,
we'll let slide.
it was a case of if you do the right thing, you're going to get rewarded and we'll help you out. We're not going to give it to you, but we'll help you out. And so, sure enough, he took me down to the finance company and I made the payments. And the guy's kind of standing there watching my dad. And because I'm pulling out cash, and they're used to getting checks or whatever. And I made the last two payments and they did their paperwork and this, that, and the other. And mom and dad signed over the title to me that night. And he took me down and I paid for the title change and the registration change and tags and the whole ding dong thing. But, it was a welcome to becoming an adult. And from that Mount Mormont, that's a rodent. From that moment on, he started treating me more like an adult. I wasn't a kid anymore, but I still had that to live up to. So, but I wanted independence. I wanted to be out. I didn't want to sit at home. I wanted to be out with my friends.
You know, unfortunately, in a way, we're not, you and I, and you guys out there. I mean, I hate to include all of you, but you tell me if this is reasonable or not. I hate to package you guys all up, put you in the back of my truck, and haul your asses down the road with me.
Yeah, we have laws against that.
But, but, so I'll say, unfortunately, all this that we've been saying, we can attest to, for obvious frickin' reasons. Now, and from the vantage point that you're talking about, and I was talking about, where we're kids and we're experiencing these things, and we're having these, I guess, decisions that we're adulting on, even as a kid. But what we can't do properly is put ourselves properly in the shoes of kids today.
No, we can't.
And the problem is this, and I'm just vamping off of this because it brought me that when you were saying, the idea. We don't know what it would have been like, or what it is like, for if we had the world at our disposal in the ways that kids today do. And I'm speaking directly of the internet, the massive amount of entertainment possibility available. Um, we don't know what kind of effect that would have had. Obviously, it would have had a great effect, but, and so what I'm getting at is that kids today, that's like we were talking about, that hop in your walk, that spring in your jump, or I'm sorry, that spring in my jump, because I've been doing the biking and
A little
whatnot.
bit of exercise, yeah.
But that spring actually refers to a memory, a memory of a youthful spring that we all had, and it's accompanied with an expectation of what's possible, this wonderment, those feelings that we had when we were kids, of what's to come. The next day seems so mysterious, whereas today, you and I, and this is why I'm hauling your asses in the thing, to a degree, you we have already figured out quite
Well,
convinced
we know what's around the corner.
quite convincingly, that tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
the trajectory of the lay of the land is roughly similar with the and we can even envision a few. So we can. But when we were kids, that future was like a misty. you know,
Well, that's
break on
because,
through to the other side.
but that's because we didn't care about most of the stuff that we care about today.
That's
All we cared about was, is Jimmy home, so we can go ride our bikes over and see if Ernie's home, you know?
that's exactly it. But attaching this
Mhm.
technology of today to kids,
Well,
we could never really the force is tugging and pulling at them is what I'm getting at.
well, we I've heard it said that this generation is more pessimistic than any other generation. And I would say, in some things, to a degree, that may be true, but I don't think there was never a golden age when everybody was happy. I mean, our language evolved. The evolution of our language kind of shows that. If you get in the dictionary and just flip open to any page, you're going to find more words with negative definitions than you are with positive definitions.
Ravine jumping, axe chopping head with axe, all the terrible.
Well, and we make jokes about it too. You know, you hear that people are ruthless. Well, they're ruthless. Does that mean they're out of Ruth? They don't have any Ruth? Uh, yes, that's exactly what it means. But and this is why little stuff like this, I like little stuff like this, because you have to go back and you have to figure it out. The word Ruth is Middle English. It's a proper name, but it means compassion. That's what it meant in Middle English. And so they name a little girl Ruth. They name a little girl Hope. They name a little girl Chastity or Charity. All popular names up until like the 1800s. There, you'll still find occasionally a Ruth or Hope, um, but there were emotions attached to those names, and they had definitions. And so the opposite of ruthless was, and still is, ruthful. And you can look it up in any dictionary. Ruthful is in there, and that means filled with compassion. Ruthless is lacking compassion. But when was the last time you ever heard anybody say ruthful?
Ruthless or ruthful?
Ruthful.
Never.
You hear ruthless all the time. Ruthful kind of fell out of fashion.
Hmm.
And that's an example of the evolution of the language getting more and more pessimistic. We do that a lot.
Hold on, let me pause you. We do that a lot, and I want to reiterate what thoughts come to mind with what you're just saying, which is a given because it's basically a rewording of what you're saying, but adding
Mm-hmm.
some sprinkles here and there. But it's part of the thing. I think there are tons of words that I know the meaning of them,
Mm-hmm.
not because I've sat with the dictionary and read the meaning of them, but
Mm-hmm.
because in context across the decades,
Mm-hmm.
used in sundry different, maybe it's a TV show, an article, or any number of things, you've learned throughout time that this word in this position, the result is that it means that it's a person, that's cunning, that's merciless, that's in terms of so you have associated emotional weight to this word. And so when you come around and tell me, Eloy, well, this story about ruthless and ruthful, um, that's what popped in my head, that I never sat and read the definition. I just it appeared so many times and read so many times that it just and that with countless other words that we
Oh,
use.
yeah. And I would venture to say 99% of people are the same way. They hear a word, they make an association because of the context it was used, and they never go any further because there's really no need unless you're interested in it.
I mean, I think it's a valuable exercise to engage in looking words up in the dictionary, but in a but I don't do that every freaking time.
Well, I
I,
don't either.
if I run across when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
I actually when I was a it's weird because now I've been for the past year or so or more, remembering things that I did as a kid that I didn't. I mean, you might think that, oh well, that's normal, but on my own, not because school wished it or demanded it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know why it would have been. It would have been due to maybe reading I don't know. I don't know why, but there were words that I would get stuck on, like what the heck, and I couldn't really ask my parents. My mom spoke English. My dad spoke English. Both spoke English, but you have to understand. Well, my mom did high school here, but you still
Mm-hmm.
have to understand that what my dad did not. But he came with English, but it was sort of a broken English and stuff. But he
Yeah.
already came packed with, some handle. But it's not like it's kind of like me.
Mm-hmm.
I have always read Spanish in my life as a thing to solve a specific issue with, like, men's bath or just rudimentary things
Mm-hmm.
for entertainment and acquisition of knowledge, of understanding. I read in English.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, English is my first language,
Mm-hmm.
and to them it was. But what I'm getting at is that I had nowhere to go
Mm-hmm.
to, so I went and got myself a thesaurus. I got
Mm-hmm.
myself a dictionary. Actually, we had an encyclopedia at home because
We
my
did too.
so there was all these tools available. So every now and then when I stumbled on something that I couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
I would reach to that because I knew that that was a solution to it.
Yeah.
But it was for simple little things. Maybe a comic book word that Stan Lee decided to use, and I was like, "What the heck is that?" And then I
Yeah.
maybe do that. But um, I
Yeah.
think we pick it up from culture, and we ascribe the meaning to it, and that's where your bull or bull in a
Mm-hmm.
china shop
Right.
might um
Yes, because if you've only heard something spoken but you've never seen it written down, you don't know. Because
exactly.
it and but that's how language morphs, and that's how sayings morph, and that's how this whole thing evolves. My point in bringing that up, though, with ruthless or feckless or whatever, is that now so we have always been more or less pessimistic, and our language has kind of evolved to reflect that. Now it just spreads so much faster, and there it's coming from so many different sources. It's not just the 5 o'clock news, because you could turn that off, or news is on, I'm going to my room and I'll, put on the radio or something, or put on a record or what have you. You could always get away from it. Now you just can't, because even if you aren't trying to be engaged in current events, people around you are, and things spread faster and wider than they ever have. I mean, two guys trip over a curb in Dallas this morning. It's on the internet within 15 minutes.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff.
Whether anybody is interested in it or not, it's there. So it you have all this stuff coming at you. I think it's easier to get cynical younger. I think it's easier to get pessimistic younger. And I think we're seeing that reflected back at us now.
I have a I don't disagree. Okay, I'm on the fence. I know exactly what I understood exactly what you're saying, due to the fact that there's all this in our face, and I did make that argument earlier that we can't put ourselves in the shoes of a situation of a kid
Right.
today. But we also, I'll just say it like this: that you just said has to be part of it, a major part of it. But at the same time, I want to say to myself, or I want to say, even with all the noise jumping out,
Mm-hmm.
there are certain, how I'm going to say this, there are certain topics that are impermissible, not because they're actually impermissible for a kid to come in contact with, but because the subject matter.
Because other people have decided.
No, no. because the subject matter
Hmm.
is uninteresting to them right out the gates. So there's
Oh,
certain,
okay. I get where you're going. Okay.
they're not ready to explore another area of, I mean, like,
Yeah.
something may hit them in their face, but they may discard it. I don't know that this is true, but there's, like you were saying earlier, there's things that back then that we weren't even considering because we were kids.
Yeah.
Um, at that level, but there were
Hmm.
possibilities that we had not explored yet.
And it
If
wasn't being driven into us every day in school or from our friends or our
or
friends' parents or their brothers or sisters or what have you.
Exactly, but there were stuff out there. There
Sure.
was stuff out there that in the future would pique our interest in order to explore. It's just that we weren't ready to, and maybe like, okay. Last thing I'll say about this, just last thing. I remember as a kid watching like all the stuff we'd see on our TVs,
Hmm.
like the comedy, the comedic shows and
Hmm.
whatever. Um, Maybe it could have been,
Carol Burnett or whatever.
Carol Burnett,
Brady Bunch.
all of those shows, and then something like, I remember 60 Minutes coming on, or I don't
Hmm.
know, just the news.
Hmm.
And here's the bit: as a kid, I was watching the news, but I wasn't connecting the dots of
Yeah.
the bigger implications of what these people were saying. I was just watching it as a man falls in a canal and blah blah blah. But the extra information that connects all the, I wasn't really. I just saw
Yeah.
that. And so there's a lot of information that even though it's accessible to kids,
Hmm.
it's really due to their lack of
Well,
focus. So there's a little bit of that is what I'm trying to.
yes, there is a little bit of that. In fact, there's a lot of that, but there's also a lot of we're not allowing kids to be kids. You know, your 5 year old. There's no need for your 5 year old to sit there and watch the news. My parents never made me watch the news. You know, when the whatever show was over and the news came on, I was up and I was off to my room. My brother and I, we were down the hall doing something, and they never, okay, fine, good, go. You know, um, we just need to let kids be kids. We need to let them play outside. We need to let them have friends in the neighborhood. You know, um, you're talking about social skills in school and this, that, and the other. Yeah, Jim, I watched the Roadrunner and never once tried to launch a giant boulder from a catapult. No, me either. But I will admit to trying to look up Acme in the phone book because that was a cool place with all the stuff they sold. If I could buy a rocket, I didn't know what I was going to do if I found Acme because I
Was
didn't have no money. I was 7.
What wasn't? Let me ask you this. This is a weird thing because everybody's a world of their own. All the Looney Tune cartoons.
Hmm.
Stay with me, you guys out there, and Mark. And maybe I'm nuts, and that's probably true. But all the Looney Tune cartoons, I enjoyed them and all this and that, and Tom and Jerry. It's just all of it. But the Looney Tune cartoons. But when the Roadrunner came on, there was a certain something that was special about this desert region for a kid's mind, where you had these two foes. There was something like for a kid to just really grab onto and say, "Yeah, something." It was magical.
And they didn't need a word.
That's true.
They
That's
didn't
true.
need any dialogue at all.
But wasn't there something that was like, like it was like, wow, this is the desert. Well, I live in Florida, so to me, looking at
Yeah.
something desert, it was like, wow, desert.
Well, I
It was
was either
magic.
here or down in the Bay Area, California, so that was kind of wild to me too. But I always kind of equated it with the Wild West, and I don't know why. I mean, there was
Oh,
highways and there were trucks and stuff like that, but and obviously rockets and anvils. But um,
love
it's funny you mentioned that. I'm gonna have to try to find it we'll talk more about that later on. There was a video that was talked about the scenery and the background art for the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, and it was like a half-hour long video, and it was all about the artwork for the backgrounds and how it was taken from real locations. The artist would just paint them, and they were used on those cells for the backgrounds.
And and, and let me tell you something, dude. I'm sorry. Maybe it's me looking back now, but even then, I thought that Bugs Bunny was a little bit too sassy for his own good.
Yeah, but
There
that
was
was
something.
fun.
Yeah, no. But Bugs Bunny, even back then, looking back now, he was quite lanky
Mhm.
and a little bit too loose
What's up,
in the
Doc?
hip. Yeah,
Yep.
he was a little too loosey goosey in the hips.
And Daffy Duck was just a smart aleck. Put him up, put
Yeah,
him up.
yeah. But oh well. I mean, just yeah, those cartoons were. We learned a lot from those damn cartoons. I'm gonna tell you right now, dude.
Yeah. But the thing about it is we knew they were cartoons. This is fiction.
Yeah,
We know this is fiction.
I had no question over that.
Hmm.
None.
Yeah.
In fact, Sesame Street.
Mhm.
I know they were cartoons, or not cartoons, but like they were Muppet type things.
Yeah. Now I can't. Sesame Street came along. I was like 8 years old, 9 years old, so I was already. It was way below my grade level. I mean, they're teaching kids how to count to 10 and teaching them their ABCs. I knew all that stuff already, but it was still entertaining. So, yeah, I watched it with my brother. No problem at all. I know my
It was good
friends did
fun.
too. Yeah, it was.
It was.
Um, there you go. Bugs never started a fight ever, but he sure didn't lay down. Yeah. Yeah. Bugs never started the fight. Yosemite Sam started every one of them.
What was the big rooster guy?
Foghorn Leghorn. Does somebody knock?
Dude, he had such a pompous, arrogant thing,
Mm-hmm.
and his little rooster. The was it a rooster? What was the little one?
The chicken hawk.
Chicken Hawk.
The chicken hawk.
Chicken
I'm here
Hawk
to
was
get me
always
a
trying
chicken.
to make everybody proud of his little. Actually, he was the arrogant one too.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm a chicken hawk. Well, chicken hawks prey on chickens. That's why they call them chicken hawks.
but it's like, boy, what are you doing, boy? Get yourself straight, boy.
Foghorn Leghorn was a riff off of years ago on the radio before TV was ever around. Fred Allen was one of the big comics of the time, and he had a radio show. And one segment of this radio show was Allen's Alley, where if you find the Fred Allen show on some of the old time radio, like on the internet database, um, he would knock on these various doors and, oh, there's Mrs. Nussbaum. Let's see. How are you doing today? And they'd have a little comedy talk back and forth. One of the doors he would knock on was Senator Claghorn from the South. Oh, Senator Claghorn, you're here. All right. I hear you're from the South. That's right, son. I'm from the South. Talked exactly like Foghorn Leghorn does.
That's hilarious.
Foghorn Leghorn was based on that character in that radio show. And so that's where the voice is almost identical. So that's where that voice, that mannerism, pay attention to me, son, you learned something, that kind of thing. That's where that came from.
Dude.
I had a cold last month like to ruin my filibuster. That kind of thing.
I'll just. I'm gonna. This is the last thing I'll say.
Yeah,
Because we're rounding. We gotta land the plane here at some point now.
Mm-hmm.
But since we're on this topic, and I don't want to drop this,
Mm-hmm.
this hot potato just now. And I hate to emphasize, but in the 80s, we had. I know I've said this before. We had all the best that came before, because they were replay.
Oh yeah.
But then we had all these GI Joes. It just the amount, because you asked about boredom and this and that. I know cartoons didn't play all the time, but boy, it was just mind explode. No kids on the streets when GI Joe was on TV either in the morning or the afternoon. None. They were all watching freaking GI Joe, like everybody knew. But something happens. This is what I wanted to mention. Something also happened further into the '80s
Mhm.
that totally blew the roof off the house,
Mhm.
and the house was a hopping.
Mhm.
Um, the Japanese, because the same people that brought Nintendo, or not the same people, the same country that brought Nintendo, due to that general thing, cartoons also were adapted for English, and there was this cartoon. There were two. One was called Robotech,
Mhm.
and the other one was called Voltron.
Okay.
Actually, there was Transformers and other. But anyways, Robotech was this futuristic Japanese anime,
I vaguely remember it. Yeah.
and then there was the Voltron. They were, in my opinion, a notch up because there was this very intricate story involved in the series, and that just blew the roof off, man. For
Well,
kids back then, it was like there was so much.
but we have to blame Star Wars because
Yeah,
there's another thing that came along with it, and that was merchandising. And that was the nail in the coffin that killed Saturday morning cartoons because then came the Transformers.
yeah.
Then came, what was the other one? Um,
Ro- the GoBots,
GoBots. And it was less about the cartoon story
more
and
about
more
selling.
about the merchandise because it wasn't good enough to watch the Transformers. You had to have the Transformers.
Yeah,
And we can blame Star Wars for that because it was that was the first the Star Wars was the first phenomena ever to cash in on merchandising, and the action figures came out, and you can have the model of the Millennium Falcon and all this, that, and the other. When they got a hold of that, when the Saturday morning cartoons got a hold of that, they were like, aha, if we can build the popularity of the characters, of course they're going to want to buy them.
it opened the door to a lot.
Yes. And G.I. Joe was kind of in the middle there because I had a G.I. Joe when I was a kid, but it was about the same size as a Barbie.
They remarketed and all.
And they made them smaller so that it was nothing like a Barbie.
Yeah, they were like this big.
And they were all space aged and this, that, and the other. And GI Joe, the GI Joe he had a green military Jeep from World War II, and dog tags and a fatigue, the OD green fatigues on the helmet and the whole ding dong thing.
It evolved.
And oh, big time. But then that became the nail in the coffin for Saturday morning cartoons because people were just outraged. You're not entertaining kids, you're trying to sell. You're just marketing toys to
And
kids.
and you know those people that pushed to change that ruined cartoons for
Well,
everybody.
yeah, the networks, the toy companies just said, okay, fine. And they pulled sponsorship of the cartoons, and the cartoons went away.
Yep.
And kids by that time didn't want to see Daffy Duck anymore. They didn't want to see Tom and Jerry
It
anymore.
ruined cartoons for the following generations. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
And now, I mean, maybe there's some markets that have repeats on, but it's Tom and Jerry and it's Looney Tunes. And I mean, but, that was the evolution, and that's just the way that it went. But
The censorship slash, um, these people kill the fun. See, that's one of my objections to these people that are all about. I, I'll just say, like for instance, Christmas and stuff. I understand the marketing aspect, but there's a joy to these. At the end of the day, I make the argument that on a cultural level, all these things are valid, and if people are going to get rich off of that, good. I don't care.
well, you know, uh, in my day, it was cereal. It was breakfast cereals. Every cartoon was sponsored by a breakfast cereal company. There were toy makers too, but every cartoon was. I mean, the Flintstones, Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa
Yeah,
Pebbles.
I loved it.
You know, the Sugar Bear with Sugar Smacks. Um, you know, all of that stuff.
You know what I used to love as far as cereal, and this was not one of those that kids often gravitated towards, but I loved it. Was Golden Grams. I loved Golden Grams.
I was a Captain Crunch fan myself.
Dude, Golden Grams, like I'd be shipped over to my grandmother's house in Little Havana, my grandparents' house in Little Havana,
Hmm.
and she always had cereal there. And for a straight few weekends, I was eating freaking Golden Grams like nobody. But then one day, I forget, she brought, I think it was, or I could be wrong, cinnamon toast crunch.
Hmm.
I had never eaten cinnamon flavored freaking cereal, but it was majestic. It was majestic, dude. The
I,
taste, oh
I,
my goodness.
I always wanted a cereal that was nothing but crunch berries. That was my favorite, Captain Crunch with crunch berries. Yeah, I liked crispy critters, and yeah, I liked alphabets. I even liked honeycomb. But you give me some Captain Crunch and put on the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Comedy Hour, and I'm a happy guy.
My dad used to buy raisin, two raisin brands. I hated it, and it was like soggy. And the second one he used to buy was those wheat bars.
Oh, shredded wheat. I love shredded wheat.
He loved that, and I was like,
I did too. I
no,
was
but
a weird kid. I liked Special K and I liked grape nuts.
which one was the grape nuts?
Grape nuts looked like the seeds out of a out of a red grape. It was hard as a rock, but you let them sit in a little bit of milk for a little while, and they soften up a little bit. Yeah, I'd eat hell out of some grape nuts, or Special K, or Life, or whatever. I mean, because if I was out of Captain Crunch, I had to eat what mom and dad bought for them, and they changed it up all the time. You know.
That was a big deal back in the day.
Oh, it was
Cereal.
a major big deal, major deal. You know.
Anyways, let's. Are you
Yeah,
any other?
we got to land the plane. It's getting late. We've been Jesus going on 3 hours.
We have an accumulated hundred and something years of stories.
Oh yeah, and we try like heck not to repeat ourselves, even though we do every single week.
Anyways, all right. So, folks, we hope you enjoyed it. We go live every Tuesday at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific Coast time. It's the Trampled Underfoot podcast show on YouTube. Be sure to check us out. We have a website. You can catch past episodes over there. Same name, trampledunderfootpodcast.com. And we have a site over on Facebook. Be sure to check that out for links and such that we add every here and there. And we're sponsored by.
Harneal Media. You know him, you love him. He's your friend. He's out there in the chat. A little slow on the trigger right now, but that's okay. I
Damn.
mean, I completely dropped out, so who am I gonna say something
How
to?
can you? Wait a second. I
So
have to interrupt. For us, remember that we're watching the delay. So in a way, he already preempted, and it popped up for us at the time that. Well,
no,
go
it
ahead.
didn't. He was way slow on the trigger. He's probably nodding off, waiting for us to shut the hell up. So, but anyway, Harneal Media, as I said, you know him, you love him. Reach out to him. He's the guy that you want on your side when it comes to your website, your web store. It comes to merch. You name it, he could hook you up. Yeah, see? Sorry, I was working. He's always busy. I don't know when the guy gets a chance to sleep.
The thing
Listen,
about
he's competitively priced. You will be happy with the service. That's Harneal Media, HARNEAL media.com, sponsor of Trampled Underfoot podcast.com.
it reminded me when you because you observed it of our conversation when we're talking about the guy in the plane and then the person next to him. They said, "Can you believe it? My internet just went out." And the guy says, "Lady," or something like that, or "Sir, we're on a flying metal machine through the air, and you expect instantaneous, And so it reminded me of that.
Yep.
You're like, all right.
It's a miracle, the miracle of flight, and you're worried that your internet went out. Oh, come on.
All right, guys. Well, we hope you enjoyed it. Be safe. Have a good one. And we'll catch you next week. Peace.
Peace.